Beautiful. Okay. So, great start. Alright, so stats in the bottom right, TY in the bottom left. TY has a different way of playing TVP, and stats has a different way of playing PvT than a lot of people. Not like a dramatically different one, but stats' kind of signature style is the Stargate, the Phoenix Adept, whereas the style of TY is more calculated. Like, he'll go into ranged Liberators, or he's not like Maru, who will send out a ton of drops everywhere. He won't stay on bio units if he doesn't think bio units are going to win. He's not nearly as timing-oriented as other Terran players, which is a pretty big strength against especially Protoss, because a lot of the times when Terrans lose against Protoss players, it's because they didn't put their tech together in time. It's because the Protoss has like 3 Colossi and Storm, and all you have to really deal with it is a bunch of bio and maybe like 3 or 4 Liberators. TY is a player who will have ranged Liberators and already Ghosts on the way by the time that comes out. Sometimes he'll have Ghosts before the Templar, making it even easier to deal with them. Of course, Ghosts and Widowmines, the best against Phoenix Adept. Against Colossi, Blink Stalkers, a more ground-based army, usually you go with Vikings instead. Okay. So stats. Interestingly, he actually puts the pylon on the inside here, as opposed to putting it on the outside. This is makes it a little bit easier to defend against drops, because your overcharge can reach. A lot of players, like, I'll put the pylon usually on the outside. Maybe I'll start doing this, because you have a little bit more coverage of your mineral line, and it's not like a pylon right here is going to defend against Liberators, and it's unlikely you need to defend against Liberators anyway. So I think that's the thought process on that pylon. It's a gate expand. This pylon is almost entirely to catch a Reaper early on. It's also nice to have an option to maybe warp in there later on, but this is mostly just for catching a Reaper. With that overcharge, of course. TY, on the other hand, he's opting for the quick factory. He gets... Okay, he did get a Reaper there, but he's getting the factory behind. No sort of bio timing here. And a second gas around 220 with an Expo. So notice what TY is doing with the Reaper. He knows that Stats is not a player who's just going to lose probes to a Reaper. So instead of trying to go straight across the map, he hunted around and tried to find any probe on the map. He's looking for any proxy Stargates. Maybe he just gets a free kill on the probe, because that's the more likely kill he's going to get than anything on the other side. Now he's going to jump in, and that was actually an active action there. He was sent it across, and then he realized at the last second, maybe I don't want to just jump up because this overcharge can hit. So TY already preemptively dodging the pylon he doesn't even know is there. So high level. So high level. Kappa HD. And it's going to be a Robo first out of stats. This is for the early Colossi. There's a couple different styles in PvT. There's the Stargate style, where you really focus on a very quick third base, and an overwhelming number of lower cost units, like Phoenixes and Adepts. And then there's the stronger but slower style of Colossi, and then usually Blink Stalkers, where you go for the Colossi as a backbone. You don't need to get a third base as early, because you don't need to put out as many units. You just need higher quality units. Honestly, on this map, it's surprising not to see Stats go for Stargate, but it's probably partly because TY knows that Stats wants to go for that Phoenix Adept style, so he's going to mix it up a little bit. Alright, the shades are coming in. Will he actually see? Yeah, seeing the Robo is a really big deal here. This is a lot of important information for TY, and we'll see what he does in reaction to it. He now knows he doesn't need any turrets. He doesn't need any turrets. He has a Widow Mine right at the edge, because Warp Prisms are obviously a big threat out of the Robo. But he doesn't need to defend against an Oracle. He doesn't need to put his Widow Mine in his mineral line. And he can be aggressive, because when you have that early defense, when you know that your opponent is not going for the Stargate, you no longer have to leave units at home to defend against usually an Oracle. So TY just going out. This is... he's not really expecting to get much done with this. This is more also actively moving away from where the Observer could be. I don't know if he's looking for an Observer or if he's trying to dodge it. But this is just like, if you take a third base with no units, then I'm not going to let you do that. But TY not really expecting to kill anything here, though he's probably going to catch Stats a little bit off guard. And now here's here's just the basics. A lot of Terran players are like, well, how do I ever do damage to a Protoss? They always have overcharge or they have warp-ins, and there's no way I can do damage. Well, the way to do damage is not focus everything into one attack. It's to split it into 2 attacks and force the Protoss to defend simultaneously. Yes, it's not as easy as A-moving, but that's the way to do it. So we're just going to go to TY vision while he does this attack. You see, he's boosting in right as soon as he's engaging. He's getting there as quickly as possible. He drops it out, stats it very quick on the ball, and he drops back. But very good micro from both players there. But if that overcharge hadn't come out, and also actually TY went back and landed at the edge of his base. But if that overcharge hadn't come out in a split second, those Widow Mines burrow, and there's no detection there to defend right now. So... But yeah, the attack gets cleaned up. He realizes he's not going to get damage, and he's immediately back at home spending his money. Alright. On the other side, Stance is going for the Colossi. Now, TY couldn't know for sure if there was an observer here. He might have suspected it. That's why he was so quick to pull back. Because you don't want to risk just losing that drop or losing the Widow Mines. There's no point if there's already vision. Alright. So... At this point, Stance has seen that there's a medevac early on. He saw he invested in the Cyclone, so he knows it's not a big bio push, because that means the factory was out quicker. So he's taking the 3rd base. This is still a little bit early, but as a Protoss player, you want to take the 3rd base earlier. Then you are 100% confident in defending it, so it kind of forces a Terran's hand. The more HP you have on that base, the less likely it is to be canceled. So, since he just drove back that attack, he killed a few units, and he has Colossi on the way. Stats immediately dropping down that base. He's not waiting for the Colossi. He's not waiting for the Colossi to finish, because he needs to have that base already up and... Well, not up and running, but with a decent chunk of HP, because this force, he might not be able to deal with it until he has a Colossus out, and he does now. Oh, he did have a Colossus. Alright, never mind. He had a Colossus the entire time, so he did wait a little while. But it's still pretty early for a Colossus build. The things he is skipping, and I'm not sure why, but what he is skipping is usually you'll see at least 1, usually 2 forges before the 3rd. So Stats skipped that. I'm not sure what the thought process was behind skipping those forges, but that means he's not going to have his upgrades as early, but he will get the 3rd base. So just, that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. It's just a little bit of something different that Stats chose to do as opposed to what usually Protosses do. We'll see if it actually ends up biting him in the long run. But yeah, Colossus is done. He has extended thermal lance, which is very important for dealing with that bio. Look at the observer placement, by the way, if you look at Stats' vision. Well, there's this one little gap here, but there's no way for TY to know that. He has 3 observers out right now. He has pylons all along the edge of his base. He's got that preemptive defense against drops. He's not letting them get in. And he just saw this, these 2 medevacs load up with at least one of these observers. So that is how to shut down a Terran player trying to get a drop off. Also, TY saw the observer, and he realized, oh, wait a second, he's seen this. There's no point in losing my medevacs here, so he drops right back. That's just, assuming Stats is good enough to realize what he's doing, even though he doesn't know for sure. Now this, he's not planning to kill this base. In fact, he's overstaying his welcome a bit. He's just trying to bait out good Widowmine hits. But Stats with the counter micro there. I would have just eaten that and lost his sentries. So what he's trying to do is, if he's able to bait the Widowmine hits and kill the sentries, that's a pretty big win. He can eat a couple Marines or Marauders. If he gets the sentries, that's completely worth it. He knows he's not going to kill that base. He knows that's not happening. He's just trying to get what he can. Alright, 2 forges are now on the way, but once again, I think that's the big sticking point in this game, is that Stats has the unit composition, but he doesn't have the upgrade, so he doesn't have the full package right now. But TY actually out there, his combat shield is a bit on the late side, so he's going to be forced to retreat. This is actually a very strong attack out of Stats. Now this is part of it. He didn't go for the upgrades early, so he has this timing with the Colossi. And he actually pulls the boys here as well, because he knows he doesn't really have enough to protect his bio without a bit of buffer. So. Now, I missed it. I don't think Stats is paying attention, but during all of this, Widowmine drop. He nailed a Widowmine drop on both sides. Stats actually microed against it, but there's a Widowmine in both. So even though he's taking damage from this attack, he's doing something on the other side of the map at the same time. And that's how you gotta do it. Otherwise, he can just continue this attack with absolutely nothing pulling his attention away. And this army is still pretty strong, and it's killing a lot of SCV. Now notice Stat's doing kind of the same thing here. He wanted to go drop into the main, but TY already has those preemptive turrets, and he's going to get the War Prism. That's a big win. That's when Stats has to start considering going home. Well, he probably should have already considered it before losing 2 Colossi, but he killed a decent chunk of SCVs, but he still has these Widow Mines to clear out. Looks like one more shot will come off. Not quite. Good defense by Stats. He doesn't allow a second shot. So after all of this, this Adept made it into the main base. It doesn't have +1. Once again, that's the big sticking point, the lack of upgrades. And I do want to point out what TY has done that he does probably better than almost any Terran in the world is that preemptive counterattack. As soon as he realized it was Colossi, we have 2 reactored starports. So you can pump out Medivacs and Vikings. And now that he actually killed a couple Colossi and he heavily bruised another, he's making Medivacs again. As soon as he gets as many Vikings as he needs to deal with the Colossi, but he wants as many Medivacs as possible as well. Especially because right now, also this counterattack, he actually shaded a few Adepts by. I think he split those off from the main army, as I'm busy not paying attention to anything going on the minimap. And those are just the little things, like, if TY doesn't pay attention for 10 seconds and there are 5 Adepts in his mineral line, then he loses 20 SCVs. Of course, TY is going to pay attention, but it still forces him to bring his army back and pull his SCVs off the line. So these guys are always doing stuff like that. I mean, they have a few hundred APM. TY at 395, Stats at 361. What a fucking scrum. That's about 6 actions a second. I guess it's pretty good. But yeah, TY has just enough Vikings to deal with the Colossi and is making those Medivacs as well. Now, once again, the upgrades are the sticking point, and also something else, you can tell Stats feels pressured, because he's making Disruptors and not going to Templar tech yet. He knows that his Colossi are effectively being countered, and he needs kind of an interim tech, and that interim tech is the Disruptors to help defend him early on, because the Colossi can just get knocked over by the Vikings at one point, especially if he has nothing else to prevent it. Yeah, good scan there. A Viking actually split off by TY. He gets vision of the 4th base as well. And another thing is there's no armory out of TY. So I think that's just a straight-up mistake there. He's making it now, but he's been under so much pressure. He's been trying to get so much done. His armory was about a minute later than it could have been. That could be a game-winning advantage, but he kind of let that slip a bit. Oh, my God. Yeah, and the scan here... just off the edge of the observer, Stats with these random observer placements, which is what you need, because obviously a Terran player is going to scan right around here because you can't go in because there's a turret, and you want to keep track of their army, and they're expecting an observer maybe over here or something. But Stats puts it right in the middle, and it doesn't get scanned. Which really does suck for TY, because he thinks, yeah, he doesn't realize this is happening. That observer placement just got about 20 supply of units killed by 1 disruptor. That observer placement right there. That just kind of mind game allowed him to sneak up with a disruptor and smack him across the face. And now you can't fight this army. With that extra 20 supply, you get a good engagement. There's only 2 Colossi. And it's 1-1 to 0-0, but now he just can't fight. He's in a bad position because he didn't scan. He scanned and he didn't see an observer, so he's like, well, okay, I have a little bit of room, a little bit of space to breathe here. So he was back at home. Let's actually look at TY's vision while that happened. I wanna point this out. We're gonna go to the TY cam here. He scanned. He's already looked for the observer. He didn't see any. He's looking over here. He's moving his army back. He's macroing. Yeah, and he's moving up this way. We're back at home. We're using some units in the control group. Oh, wait a second. Fuck. Yeah, he wasn't looking. And it's just that split second. That's all you have as a Protoss or a Terran at this level. But it's that split second. He's going to move up this location. He can use the Liberators pretty well. But he can no longer do that game-ending damage he was looking to do by pulling Stats out of position. Now this is some dirty Looks like Stats right now caught between a rock and a hard place. And now this is the problem. Because he went for the Colossi early, and he did that failed attack, and he doesn't really have upgrades. He can't really get on top of this army at all. I want to point out again, Stats always with something. I don't even know where these Adepts came from, by the way. I have no idea where those Adepts came from. I think they might have, like, gone all the way around and shaded in. And at the same time, as soon as he realizes this is going to be, like, a siege attack, and he's not going to be fighting, obviously because of the rocks, he sends out another group of Adepts just to do anything he can to take the pressure off him. TY's coming down hard on him right now. But Stats is trying to breathe a little so he doesn't get choked out. And I think around this point is when Stats is like, oh. Actually, nice. I didn't know that would hit. But these are the things you got to do. You see, TY is actually turning around because that's a decent, that's half a dozen, that's 9 Adepts right there. That is no laughing matter. Okay. And TY is forced to scramble all the way back, and Stats, most Protosses will be so stuck on dealing with that attack, they're not doing anything else on the map, and that's how Terran wins in that situation. And he gets away as well. Because their units are so cost-effective. The Liberators, just bio units in general, they're so cost-effective that even if you take a good engagement, by the time you actually clean that army up, he's going to have another army. The only way to stop him from doing that are these Adept shades, constantly back and forth. Oh, and the scan! But he moves the Observer as soon as he sees the scan. That was the Observer was chilling here, but he moved it on the scan. He forces out a second one. And it sees the army and the Liberators. So he has an idea of what's going to happen. There's still a quad overcharge ready. And he scans in. Boosts the medevacs. But even 4 overcharges, there's so many units here. He only gets 1 out. That's actually a big move. But the Disruptor hit. And he picks it back up. Ooh, now Stats. We saw there, for the first time, we saw Stats get caught off guard. We just saw it right there. He had these Adepts. We're going to go back and we're going to look at the stats cam on that. For the first time when this attack comes, he sees the scan, but what is he looking at? But what I want to point out is the Adepts are going across the map, and then they get pulled back. Obviously, Stats can't bring them back for his army. By the time the Adepts come back, the fight's going to be over one way or another. But he actually brings them back because he wasn't prepared. He didn't have his army split up how he wanted, so he panicked for a split second, and that's what that's the angle TY found. But this drop comes into the main, and Stats is like, oh shit. And these Adepts are still hotkeyed, I believe, into the main control group. Wait, did he hit the select all army hotkey? Oh, you know how we're going to be able to know? You see this Observer? Stats hit the select all army hotkey, boys. That's how you know we panicked. Because why else are you bringing this Observer back and the Adepts? All the army starts converging towards the main base at the same split second. Which means Stats jammed on that select all army hotkey. He hit the panic button. And TY is in a nice position. He's down on supply, but he's in a really nice position here. He did. The overcharge is still good, but there's so many units back here. And now Stats is kind of scrambling to put the units back where they're supposed to be. Yeah, this Observer's coming back. Once again, what do you need to see? There's not even a Widow Mine here. So, in that split second, these Adepts could have already been doing damage. TY forced a lot out, and you see TY at the same time. He's got a Liberator up here. He's got a Liberator up here. He's got the army over here. He's got his Vikings, because at this point he's realized he's no longer, like, what are the Vikings going to do? They can't really fight. They're not great at fighting. They actually just kind of get in the way. There are no more Colossi to kill, so he just lands them down over on this side. The only thing Stats has is this, but for once he got caught off guard, and now TY is hitting them in 3 different places. And once this is here, like, once this is entrenched, it's so difficult to deal with this. Yeah, Stats is trying to get damage done, but you can tell his mind is elsewhere right now. It's a slugfest. But the only real way to deal with that is preemptive defense. And TY has killed so many. Like, despite all of this, Stats has cleaned it up well, and he's been cost-effective enough that his army is still so large. Like, it looks like TY is winning, but because of all these backstabs that he keeps doing, TY is down to 70 supply. Yeah, he's down to 17 workers against 38. So TY had a lot of good moves here, but Stats held it together. Which is, like, it looked all TY up until the very end when you suddenly realize TY has no more units. Like, during all of this, Stats has killed 72 SCVs. He cleaned up enough of the army. He has a very cost-effective one. And even though, well, he eventually finished the 2-2 upgrades as well, he caught up in upgrades, so that's pretty important. But yeah, so there you go. And TY actually ends up tapping out. But it goes to show you how much of it, like, all these Adept shades, I guarantee you, during the cast, I was watching the stream, and what I'm watching the army, right? Like, I'm watching the fights. But it's what's happening off the screen is also happening off the screen in their heads as well. Like, TY is really focused on microing this Terran army, and it needs to be microed. It's very important to control it well. But Stats finds those little Adept shades on the other side. Maybe they kill 5-6 SCVs, but that adds up. And at the end, it's 72. And that's a lot. That's a solid number. So, Stats wins game number 1. In pretty dominating fashion, by the way. Even though TY made massive plays the entire game as well. Alright, the next map is Proxima Station. Let's see if I can just open that up directly. Or if I'm going to have to relog into BattleNet, I'm not sure. God damn it. Any second now. We're going to get... Where's my filler music? We're going to game 2. I don't know. It won't let me just load it, so I have to relog every fucking game. It's really annoying. The replay system. Like, if you're not watching... And this was just, like, last Sunday. But we had a patch today, so... Right now I have to restart SC2 effectively after every game. It's worth it, right? These guys are pretty good. Oh my god. Okay, it worked now. We're almost there. No. I have to redo the settings after every game, too. So that's fun. Intermission! Okay. There we go. Game number 2. Stats is up 1-0. We're heading into Proxima Station. Okay, so Proxima Station is definitely... It's a rough map to fight against Terran, depending on what the Terran does. It can be a rough map to fight against Protoss as well. But there's a lot of abusive things you can do on this map. Now, at the start, it's a very defensible one. You can't get really attacked on the ground unless there's going to be some sort of overcharge rush or something, but you have the single ramp defending 2 bases. That's your hallmark of a defensible map. But at the same time, there are vulnerabilities from nearly every angle. There's a lot of airspace, so that means Stargate and Starport units in general, drops, can be there's really no way to shut down an angle, or a serious angle, against the air units. There's no real way to... Like, you can't just put one turret here and be like, my work here is done. I will never be dropped again. Like, no, absolutely not. And the secondary point is the third base. There is a choke point here where Liberators and Force Field are very useful, especially early on. If you're able to siege up on the opposite side with Liberators, or if you're able to do a nice Force Field push before they have too many Widow Mines or tanks or something, you can just cut the army in half or siege it from above, and it's very difficult to deal with it once they're already there. And that's what we see a lot of the time, is some combination, like, not so much in Protoss versus Terran, but against Zerg especially, you see a lot of Force Field pushes. As the Terran player against a Protoss, Liberators and tanks are in high demand as well. Especially since you can tech up very quickly without being that vulnerable on the ground. Okay. Of course, both players going for the early expo, even though this is where TY goes for the spicy. I actually forget what he does in this game. Is this just a quick Widow Mine drop? Comes in a little bit quicker than you'd usually expect, and it's almost impossible to scout this location. Even if you're actively looking, like you know he's going to put a proxy somewhere, it's still unlikely you'll find this in any quick amount of time to actually stop it. The most you can do is react to it, so... I mean, I'm not surprised that Stats isn't sending a probe out, because that'd be silly. But it is going to get that Widow Mine drop in a little bit quicker, and once again, you don't really need as much in the way of defense early on because of the way the map is laid out. You have that double ramp. You have that double base protection with the ramp. So Stats on the other side going for the Stargate. And now this is his. He's better than anyone in the world at the Stargate Adept style. So I'm not surprised, especially on this map with obviously a lot of drops and other air-based attacks coming out. Having that Stargate opener gives you a lot of tools to deal with it. The problem is this is going to come in so quick. Will he actually have detection? Even if he has the Oracle, will he have a Revelation? If 2 Widow Mines drop out and they're in either mineral line, you can only do so much. Alright. We do see Stats once again. He likes these pylon placements right at the top of the ramp. And fun fact, this is the only place a Reaper can come in. Now, there is no Reaper, but if there was, this is the only place it can come in. It can come up the ramp or jump here. Everywhere else is blocked off by little things preventing the Reaper from jumping up. Yeah, so pretty much you can't get in with a Reaper if they're paying any sort of attention. Now, this is that trademark Stats style here of the single Oracle coming across the map into Phoenixes. Now, if he doesn't trigger the overcharge, the Widow Mines are going to burrow, and then they're going to be a massive pain. There's no Robo. That's part of the style. Oh. Will he get the lift here? Oh, he's not paying attention. He's microing the Oracle. Ooh! That's a juicy hit. And now that's real unfortunate for Stats there. And he almost lost the Oracle as well. Four SCVs did go down. But he was so busy microing that Oracle. And this drop came in quicker. Like, when you go... If he built the factory and the starport in his base, this drop wouldn't have come in until after the Oracle had already been microed. Oh, God. He doesn't even know that's there. Ooh. He knows this one's here. But he still gets 2. How many workers have been killed so far? 13. That is... And he still doesn't have detection. Like... He has no rope. He had to make another Oracle for Revelation. And he still doesn't have a Robo. Yeah, he can show up with the Cyclone. That's not going to do damage, but anything that distracts him and maybe gets him another Widow Mine hit is also very helpful. Kills the pylon. And there's no glaives. There's nothing but just straight Adepts here. And while they're not particularly great at killing Vikings or killing Cyclones, they tank a decent chunk of damage. Interesting, he decided to go back in the air there. I guess it keeps the Phoenixes from being able to just lift, and he actually killed them off. That's the momentum as well. Killing Phoenixes is killing his ability to do damage on the other side of the map. And now that he's actually taken out the Phoenixes, there's no way to hunt down this medevac. So we can use that to fight another day. Now, despite all of this, Stats is still pretty decent on the probe count, because he's got 2 Nexi, at least 1 being chrono boosted. He's continually making workers, and he's got that quick third. Ooh. He got the Phoenix. He got most of the medevac there, so he got something. But the biggest thing this has done is reset anything Stats wanted to do. He reset the tech tree. He chopped it off at the base there. He killed the Phoenixes, which is the one choice of tech he has so far. He only has the Stargate. You kill the Phoenixes, you kill anything there. He delayed the Twilight Council and the Forge. So in doing that, TY has a lot of room to breathe here. He doesn't have to worry about a bunch of shades coming across the map with glaives. That's not happening. He doesn't have to worry about the Phoenix count being so high he can never even think about dropping. So despite not killing the base, despite not really killing that many probes in that attack, despite losing several of his units, it's definitely a win for TY. Alright. So what we're looking at right now is TY, he's very confident that, I mean, he's coming back home with all these, but TY right now is not thinking, oh, I need to be more worried about a Warp Prism drop coming in. He already knows for a fact there's not even a Robo. So he's just macroing up. He's getting all his production together. This is the most important thing as Terran, is getting those barracks up before you need them. And TY already has 5 barracks pumping here. A lot of Terrans, especially at lower level, a big mistake they make is queuing up too many units. Like, they'll have 1 or 2 barracks, and then they'll have 5 or 6 Marines queued up. If you're only queuing up 2 Marines, and then you use those other few hundred minerals to make more barracks, you're going to have a lot more production more quickly. And that's how you get those armies like TY ends up building. I like this, having just basic defense on either side. Now he's starting to be afraid of Phoenix, Harass, and Warp Prism. This is when, now he knows Stats has had some time to rebuild, so he's starting to set up those defenses. But yeah, this is just basic Warp Prism and Phoenix defense, is what he's doing. And just making sure he's set up. And until he gets more medevacs, he can't move out again. So. And Stats, he knows where his bread is buttered. He's getting the Phoenixes, he's getting the glaives. You can't just be like, well, he killed my Phoenixes, I'm gonna go double Robo Colossus now. You can't do a U-turn when you're going 60 miles an hour. And despite Stats having to swerve a little bit, he's back on track. So it's still anyone's game, but TY definitely has an edge in that he's been able to build up all this production pretty much unscathed. He had a couple kills to an Oracle. The Oracles are gone now because of that first attack. So now there's a big attack coming across. This is still a very strong army. It's just that TY has had a lot of leeway here. But that doesn't mean Stats can't fight. The supply, look at the supply. They're even. So yeah, and the Phoenixes, killing those Widow Mines is huge, by the way. If you kill the Widow Mines, the Adepts 1-for-1 trade incredibly well. Now TY needs to get back home. And the Shades are coming. He's hunting them down. He's throwing mad shade at the moment. But he's built a wall here, this one Trader SCV. But yeah, TY realizing without the Widow Mines, without Liberators, without a kicker, Bio does not do very well. Even though the Adepts, well, he's going to have 1-1. Even though the Adepts only have the +1, with Guardian Shield reducing... Okay, I'm going to explain exactly how Guardian Shield works, by the way, because that's very important. And I think a lot of players don't actually understand exactly what it does and why it's important. But Guardian Shield is the big bubble out of the sentries, right? It's the big bubble out of the sentries. And it's so important, especially against Terran, especially against Marine-based armies, because every ranged attack is reduced by 2 damage. And the bubble can cover pretty much your entire army. So it doesn't sound like a big deal. But you have to realize Marines only do 7 damage. So if you have +1 armor, and a Guardian Shield, those Marines are only doing 4 damage. They're doing half the damage, almost half the damage, close enough to half, that they would usually do. And also Marauders, they do 2 attacks for only 6 damage apiece. They actually fire twice at the same time, so it's applied twice. So these units fire very quickly with a large number of attacks, which exponentially increases. Like, for example, a Thor, it does 50 damage a hit. So a Guardian Shield ain't going to do shit against that. But the Marines and the Marauders fire so quickly, if you don't have Guardian Shield, it becomes much easier. The army essentially takes 30% more damage, up to even more than that, depending on the upgrades, if you don't have Guardian Shield. So that's why it is aptly named. Okay, so that's why I'm trying to point that out and focusing on the sentries, and just in case there are people who didn't understand, it's only range damage. It doesn't work against melee. If I see another player charge up their Void Rays or Guardian Shield against Zerglings, I'm going to be disappointed. Void Rays are a whole different thing, but back to it. And it looks like, I believe a War Prism was shot down here. Yeah, he shot it down, but he got the Adepts in. And now that the Adepts have the +1 attack, they one-shot units. So, once again, we're going to talk more about upgrades and Protoss upgrades. But the +1 attack on the Adepts increases their damage enough that it counteracts the +1 armor and just no armor at all. It allows Adepts to two-shot SCVs and Marines that don't have combat shield yet, by the way. So that's why it's such a huge upgrade, especially if you can get it early. Of course, it's just an important upgrade to have, but if you don't have that, it takes a lot longer. It takes 3 shots, and the Adepts fire very slowly, even with the glaives compared to other units. So that's why the +1, and that's why it's so important not to let those Adepts in once they have that upgrade. All right, and now this army, I think it's just out here. It was probably a little bit far out from where it should have been, but he knows where the army was up until a few seconds ago because he had the Adepts in the base, and he saw that the army came back to defend it. So he knew for at least a couple moments. Also, he has an observer now, but he knew for a couple moments where that army was, so Stats wasn't afraid of a counterattack. Single Liberator. This is very important to do, even if you don't have range. It's not like, well, of course they have Stalkers, they're going to have Blink, but it's just the attention and the units required to deal with the Liberators that's more important than actually. Now, this is another thing I want to point out. TY is the best player, well, one of the best players in the world at running with a lead because he doesn't do what he's not Maru. He's not going to say, like, you know what? I got a bit of a lead. You know what it's time to do? You know what's probably a good, non-risky, smart idea? We're gonna load up 6 medevacs and fly them into the main and see what happens. No, that's not how TY plays. TY is like a chess player. He tries to see a few moves ahead. He gets a little bit of a lead. He takes a pawn. Then he says, all right, how can I turn this into your queen? And what he does, he gets the Ghost Academy. He gets his armor. He gets his upgrades. He gets his Liberators. He doesn't focus on getting more bio units. He gets the units that are going to be more effective later on. He's trying to think several moves ahead. And now notice he has Ghosts out before Storm is even finished. He has no Templar with this army. That is pretty damn rare, even for a Terran that gets a bit ahead. Yeah, he definitely needed to cancel that Shade. That would have been a big mistake. And I love these Liberators from TY. He's just going to every location. Look how beautifully timed out those are. Those are 2 Liberators in 2 different locations that were queued up in such a way that they're going to siege up at the same time this attack is coming across, and at the same time as each other. So, this is actually, and the placement on them is pretty dirty as well, especially the main one. He's actually repositioning to a fresher patch. And at the same time as he's cutting off the army. So the Liberators, let's look at the stats cam. To really appreciate this, you got to look at the stats cam. So right now, in the everybody cam, you see the Liberators, you see the army coming across. But we got to look at the pressure that Stats is under and what he's doing. I didn't even see this War Prism, but... Alright, Stats queuing up the War Prism. Now he's gonna... He sees the army coming in, but he's not exactly sure what's gonna happen. He's coming down to join up with his Templar. But suddenly, the Liberators are sieged up in his main... at his Nat, the army comes in, the Widow Mines are coming out, and his army's just out of position. He hasn't even looked back. He doesn't even know about this Liberator. This Liberator's just been unloading. It's got 6 kills. It's going to get another 6. But at the exact same time, if that Liberator had come in 10 seconds earlier, Stats would already have Stalkers back there to defend it. But because it came in right when the army was, is why that Liberator's doing damage. Let alone the army doing damage, obviously. Those were sick EMPs, by the way. We're going to go back and actually just watch this fight. But yeah, also, you had a good point there in just the mini-maps of either of these players. Stats has vision pretty much. He sees it, he just can't react to it. TY, on the other hand, he's not... He has a sensor tower, he has a Viking, and he has turrets, so he knows where he's vulnerable. He doesn't have as much vision on the map, but it's not as important for Terran to have vision because the only real dangers are warp prisms at this point. And if he just defends or deflects the warp prism, that's all that's important. Whereas Terran has so many ways of doing damage. It's just a fact. You have medevac drops. Like, if 3 medevacs show up in your main base, maybe with Liberator support, well, you're pretty fucked if your army isn't over there. If an army comes up and sieges up its Liberators and plants down Widow Mines, you're pretty fucked. If a Liberator comes in from any angle, you need to have basic defense. So it's just how Protoss works against Terran that you need to have all these things. It's not so important for Terran to do that because they're more focused on the actual engagements. Alright. So now TY moves up into position. I'm not sure Stats is fully appreciating the size of the army. Like, he's going to see this. He's going to get ready to fight. Right now, he doesn't realize the ghosts are here. Notice he actually moved the ghosts back so he could control them better. The Phoenixes flew over the rest of the army because he just wasn't prepared for them. He moves away, lands the EMPs. That's pretty much game right there. Now, just a few seconds and it all falls apart. And now this is because, once again, this wasn't because Stats controlled this fight badly. It's because TY has kind of run with a lead the entire game. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to do that. SCV's not great at countering Adepts. But now TY has won the game. But it's because TY got these units out. He removed the only way Stats was dealing with that army and not losing the game, which is Storm. But because he was ahead, he already had the Ghosts out before the Templar even showed up. He had a 4th base, he had Liberators, and he kept working with the lead that he gained early on. So that game was pretty much all TY. The last game was Stats shutting down all the stuff. So in going for that semi-proxy Widowmine and medevac, like the Widowmine drop, he never allowed Stats to really get off the ground. Puns are intended because he was going for Stargate, but in showing up with that and then the follow-up attack, removing the Phoenix count, delaying the tech, means Stats, the big threat, are Adept in the first game. In the first game, what we saw were the Adept backstabs. At some point, TY had just lost so much economy that he couldn't put out enough units anymore. But this game, because of TY already preemptively shutting down Stats' angles of harass, there was no counter damage to be done. He killed some SCVs, but not nearly enough, not the same level of which TY was doing. So TY was able to stick with that lead pretty much the entire game. All right. And now it's 1-1, and we're going to game number 3 of this match, which was played 2 days ago. 2 days? 2 days. Ish. A little bit over 2 days. Hopefully you guys are enjoying. I'm going to be posting this to YouTube after, of course. I have to relog for every game. The next map was... Thank you, J Duvall, for that sub as well. Thank you for joining us. Abyssal Reef. And once again, I have to relog after every game because we had a patch today. I like the new co-op mission, even though it kills my FPS. Alright, we're almost ready. Oh yeah, this is the sick game. This game is a long one. So there's going to be a lot of stuff. So what I'm going to focus on, these last games, I've been focusing on the bigger picture. Mostly, like, what the strategic choices they're making, like making... how much damage did this do? I'm going to focus, this game, my focus is going to be on micro and control. I mean, obviously I'm going to focus on the other things, but I'm going to make a point to point out exactly the little things they're doing with their units and how they're doing it, like actually what physical keys they're pressing in order to do certain things. That's what I'm going to try to put an extra focus on for this game. Alright. Here we go. Let me get the get a score up there, just so you guys know what's up. That dramatic music. I'm so glad they finally gave Protoss not shitty music in Legacy of the Void. The Protoss music was so bad. Okay. But Abyssal Reef is, obviously the coolest map.
Your dedication.
Thank you, Cat Lord 337 for that sub as well. But it's also, at first glance, it seems pretty standard, but it's actually pretty significantly different than your average two-player map, because it's pretty damn difficult to attack in early on, just because of the choke points and everything. The third base is a little bit off to the side. There are some decent attack paths. You can get hit from a lot of different angles, but it's also pretty easy if you're really proactively focused on it to shut it down. Like if you have maybe a couple pylons back here, you deflect any drops or liberators, and then you shut that down. They can maybe slip around towards the main, but it's a defensive map with a lot of maneuvering that is required to be done. So setting up maybe a wall with bunkers and depots prevents a lot of adept shading. Things like that are important.
I expected.
Thank you. There you go. You've done it.
This is an epic game. Hi, YouTube. Kappa.
Alright, so the scouts are going out. TY actually opting for the SCV, which this is mostly to see if he needs to be worried about a very quick pylon rush most of the time. It's not really to see... it's to see if they have two gates, maybe. If they don't have an expo, obviously, you have to react very strongly. But it's mostly to see if the Reaper needs to be looking around. Is there a probe hiding somewhere that I need to be worried about? And at this point, he's pretty confident he doesn't need to worry about that. Even if there was a pylon rush, if they've already expanded, the most it should do, really, is take out a depot. And luckily, here's some RNG in Starcraft for you guys. You can't... The tech lab or the reactor, add-ons always need to be placed in the same place. Now, this is a cheeky move. Thank you, RXJR. RXRJ, welcome back. But you can't choose which side of the barracks the tech lab or the reactor is on. If TY was on this side, and his reactor was in front, it becomes vulnerable to a pylon rush. But because TY is on this side, it isn't, effectively. I mean, I guess maybe you might be able to reach it, but it's definitely not nearly as vulnerable. So, TY going to be a little bit more confident in just basic defense against that. So that it doesn't really factor in that often, but every once in a while you get a main bust, and suddenly you have this vulnerable wall-in, or something along those lines, and it does affect the outcome of the game. And it looks like... Is this a game where he opens up Ravens? I forget. But opening up with a Hellion means he does want to spend on something more expensive here. Yeah, we've got a Widow Mine as well. This is so, like, incredibly timed out because he had just enough gas for the medevac right as it started. I actually forgot. Maybe I was, I don't know. Maybe I was going to get some more dank memes or something, taking a bit of a break. I don't remember how this game opened up, so it's new to me as well. But we do have the Oracle coming out. This is the first game where Stats is going to be able to get his Stargate and his third base without too much damage on the other side of the map. We'll have to see if there's any sneaky... There's actually no... There's zero defense against the Oracle. There's nothing here.
Your dedication will be rewarded.
Thank you, Gadiantian, for that sub as well. Yeah, there's a Cyclone. There's a Viking. Now, you see how cautious Stats is being? Because you can hide the Widow Mine in a lot of different places. Oh, TY. He thinks there's a Widow Mine in there. And the SCVs, I think just now at this point, Stats is confident. Yeah, he could have gotten 5 or 6 more SCVs if he just... If he was a Masters NA player, he would have been like, looks like there's no turret. Let's go on in. But Stats is too good. And he's really worried about losing that Oracle to a Widow Mine, because that's a big blow. And this is a real cheeky move over here. I'm surprised he committed to it, and now he sees the Widow Mine. The bunker doesn't quite hit the Nexus, unfortunately. Is he actually going to kill this? And the Hellion gets in as well. Ooh, the splash damage combination. He can't actually kill this, right? That one Adept just kind of deciding it wanted to be killed there. This is a very weird situation. And the Cyclone's going to finish off the Nexus. Okay. So, I'm pretty sure this was a target of opportunity here. I'm not entirely sure that TY... Was he actually thinking about doing that? Did he bring an SCV, or did he just have an SCV on the other side? I'm not sure. But either way, very smart move. Let's see how Stats sets up his control groups here. Yeah. He's got his Phoenixes and his Oracle on the same hockey. So, the way he controls his spells, the way you can control multiple groups of units, and especially as Protoss, it's very important to do this, but the way Stats is setting it up is he has all of his Phoenixes and his Oracle, which means obviously you can't cast the same spells with the same units. So what will take priority is the Oracle. Units have a priority, like your Mothership Core will always have spellcasting priority whenever you select it, even if the other units, like if you select 4 Adepts in a Mothership Core, you're going to have in the bottom right the icons for a Mothership Core and be able to control it. But the quick way to do it, and the way I assume that Stats is doing it, is he's using Tab. Tab is how to flip between different groups, different selection groups. So when he hits his hotkey and he wants to use his Phoenixes, he'll hit 3 or 2, which he has it on, and then Tab, and then he'll be selecting his Phoenixes in order to be able to use the lifts. And he just does that very quickly. TY on the other side, some players will put all their... I use this for production. It appears TY has a separate control group for each of his barracks, factory, and starport, but for production and for buildings, you can use it as well. Like, say you have a factory, the barracks, factory, and the starport all on one control group. So you hit that control group, and then it will select the barracks first, and then hit AA, build 2 Marines, Tab, you're selecting the factory, D for a Widow Mine, and then Tab again, and maybe R for a Raven or whatever you want to build. And that's how you do that with buildings. It's kind of dealer's choice on production, and you don't really need to use it for your spellcasters, but be prepared to have a lot of different control groups if you're not using it, because at some point you get so many types of units that need to be controlled, especially as Protoss. I mean, if you want to list them, we've seen games, and I'm pretty sure this game gets to the point where you have Adepts to Shade, Stalkers to Blink, Sentries to use Force Field and Guardian Shield, and even on occasion Hallucination, High Templar to cast Storm. You have Disruptors to shoot. You have any air units like Phoenixes and Oracles to control their spells, use their Revelations. And, I mean, Dark Templars to Blink if that's actually a thing you're doing. So, getting used to that, if you don't know how it works, I suggest just getting into a situation where you have to use different types of units and just kind of get the hang of it. So, and Stats knows, like, he's obviously, he as soon as he saw the Cyclone, he said, okay. And he went down to rebuild his third base, but that's a big blow. Losing that third base timing, TY taking advantage. He ate some damage at home. It wasn't completely for free. But he only lost 4 SCVs. He could have lost more, but he baited Stats into overreacting and thinking he had a Widow Mine, so. With the worker count, still in Stats' favor. That's just how Protoss works. It evens out because mules. You see, actually, TY has more income right now. Alright. Oh, and TY already finished his 3rd command center. So I like that. The best way to get ahead is Terran, and TY is a master of getting ahead. The best way to get ahead is to take advantage. Like, if you're killing an opponent's base, your focus shouldn't be on, okay, now how do I finish him off? What TY did, he said, okay, in order to deal with this, you're already going to need to make more units. But I already have these units. Like, I didn't lose them. They're still here. I have enough to defend, so I'm going to take a 3rd command center in a situation where maybe if he doesn't get that 3rd base, or if he loses those units before taking it out, he's going to have to kind of turtle up and focus on unit production back at home. But TY already preemptively getting that 3rd CC as soon as he realizes he's going to get damage done. Alright. A single Widow Mine drop here. Now this is a bit, like, if the Phoenixes spot it, he loses this medevac. But, oh, I like that. Very conservative. He's going to put it on the high ground here, you little cheeky devil. Uses the Revelation. He uses that tab through in order to maximize damage here. That Revelation is a double there. He knows where the buildings are. He knows about how many units are there, but in case there's some Widow Mines hidden, he was about to come in with a bunch of Phoenixes. If he gets hit by 2 Widow Mines, he could lose pretty much all of them. So that's why he just preemptively revealed everything. Did he lose the Oracle, or did he split it off? Stats, what have you done? This cheeky-ass Widow Mine gets 4 kills. It's not getting away, though. Alright. And these turrets are obviously to defend against Phoenixes here. He's just kind of projecting his defense. Because if you put the turret in the middle of the mineral line, the Phoenixes can still kind of pick away at the edges. So that's why you'll see these turret placements. Even if he was afraid of warp prisms, they'd probably be even further out. Or, well, they'd be around the same area, but the same kind of ideas apply. Yeah. Well, looks like he did have the Oracle. He must have sent it somewhere. I think he brought the Oracle back to deal with the Widow Mine. That's what happened. And look, once again, it's so important for Stats to have that vision. I don't know if he'll go for a 4th base. He has the money pretty soon, but if he doesn't have time to warp in, time to react, and 2 medevacs unload at the edge of his base, and he doesn't even have a warp in, well, he's going to lose possibly the game. So that's why it's so important, but mostly for defending the fort. This isn't a super pylon, though, so it doesn't have the quick warp-ins. We should see one more over that. At this point, now Stats has his sentries. He has that access to Guardian Shield, and he has a solid Phoenix count. He's actually gone up to 9 here, which is definitely a focus on it. If you just want to harass a little, you want to defend early on, then you get 3 or 4, and then you switch into, I don't know, maybe quicker blink or something. But these Phoenixes need to continue getting value over time. If they don't, they're very active units. They're very quick, they're mobile, they have energy. If they max out on energy, you're not getting much value from them. Let's put it that way. They're maxed out on energy right now just because TY has sat at home defensively. But if he's on the map, he needs to do whatever he can with these Phoenixes. And now this is Warp Prism. This is Warp Prism Vision, pretty much, and Adept Shades. Because we've seen Stats use those to ridiculously great effect. And that's how TY lost in Game 1, is just Adepts from everywhere. Once again, the scan, the Observer just barely. That wasn't intentional. Stats just has this Observer here. He wasn't trying to avoid that scan in particular. And the 2 Adepts. But he does have vision of them, so he should be ready. Now, the Protoss army wins. The thing is, if he loses his Phoenixes, he loses his map control. Like, he might be able to kill this ground army, but he can't end the game. Like, there are Liberators and Widow Mines and everything else back at home. And just buildings in general. He can't end the game. So right now, TY is just trying to keep Stats from getting into a good position. He's trying to keep him away from his base, but it looks like he's failed because of Warp Prism. I don't know how this got all the way. I think it must have flown around the bottom side in order to minimize. Yeah, there was still a turret there, but very good turret placement from TY. Even though the Warp Prism did get in, it's not getting out. He did have to bring most of his units back, but Stats committed a large warp in there, which means he can't really attack forward during that timing. That's kind of like, well, I'm going to kill as much as I can here, and then sit back, because now your army's trapped in your base dealing with all of this. And the Oracle stays alive. That's a massive tag. He sees the Ghosts. He sees the Liberators. He even tagged a couple all of the meta. The entire army. Okay, that's as good as it's going to get. And he got away with the Oracle, so he's going to be very happy with that. And this allows him to be very confident, because Observers can die, but Revelation does not. And that's why it's so important to use that as well as you can. Now, what are the upgrades? Just going in, let's talk about the state of the game right now. There's a lot of different factors, especially on Abyssal Reef, but the most basic one is army supply. And we see 107, 125. Stats is bigger, but then we move on to unit compositions. And the unit composition is he has some Templar in the back without Storm. TY doesn't know that. He has mostly Adepts. He has some Phoenixes. I don't know where they are, though. They're not over the fight right now. They're over here, so they're not in the fight. He has sentries for Guardian Shield. And then the next thing you kind of move into is upgrades. And it's 2-2 versus 1-1. So stats right now, if he's just taking a heads-up fight, even if he gets a couple storms, he needs to take a winning fight. He needs to overwhelm this army. He can't fight into Liberators and Widowmines, and if he gets EMP'd, his units just can't fight straight up because medevacs are so good. So right now, Stats knows he can't fight. TY, he scans this. He sees the Templar, so he knows with EMPs, and he knows about the upgrades. I guarantee you these players are constantly checking for that. That's so important. If he takes a fight right now, and it's even, like, it's a medium position, like they're on the open field. Well, actually, the open field would favor TY. If they're in a bit of a choke point and he still has to deal with some storms, he'll still take that fight. So right now what Stats wants to do, he wants to keep... Stats can't fight. So what he's trying to do is keep TY back. He's trying to keep him from going forward with these Liberators, with these EMPs, with these upgrades, because if he gets in range of any of his bases, he can zone him out and he can take him out. So the reason Stats is on the field right now is because if he sits back at home, his house is going to get surrounded and Liberators are going to start shooting in the windows. So right now Stats needs to do whatever he can. He has enough units. If TY isn't sieged up, if he doesn't get all the EMPs, if the Adepts are in a nice position, well, Stats can easily win the fight. So that's why Stats is just trying to push him away at every turn, and he's going to be waiting until Storm is done. He's going to be waiting until he has his, upgrade, as many upgrades as possible, and he's just going to keep positioning around. He's going to keep positioning around in order to keep TY off his back until he gets the fight he wants. And that's why the Adept Shades are important. That's why Warp Prisms are important. That's why just staying out on the map is important. Yeah, the EMPs land. They don't hit most of the Templar. Once again, there's no way to know whether he has Storm or not. He can only know how much energy he has. So he has to assume there's Storm done unless he saw when the Templar Archives came down. But now, you see Stats right on the edge. Ugh, he's trying to get feedbacks there. So this is about to be an engagement, one way or another. We're going to watch the engagement, then we're going to watch from both sides and see what they're doing in order to control this. So we're just going to watch it go down at first. The EMPs land, but they don't land on all the storms. Phoenixes don't kill Liberators that quick, but they do eventually. Storm kills them faster. But yeah, TY is still zoning them out there. This is why TY didn't press forward. This one Warp Prism in the back, it bought Stats a few seconds to breathe here. And now as he gets the Warp Prism in, he's pouncing again because TY was busy dealing with it, and that's a massive storm on that army. Alright, so TY got shut down in that engage. Even though it seemed like he had a good position and a good army, TY got shut down. First, we're going to watch from his perspective. We're going to watch from TY's to see what he was doing early on and then later on. So he's scanning. He doesn't... You know why he scanned twice there? Because there could be High Templar up there waiting for him. And the storms come down from the top, and suddenly he's boxed in. Now, his control groups, he has his Bio Army, and I assume his Marine Marauders on 1. He's got his Ghosts on 2. He's got his Liberators on 3. So he's got his 3 different moving parts that he needs to do different things with. He needs to siege up the Liberators and keep them from moving with his Bio because they don't necessarily want to be doing the same thing. He's got his Ghosts, which are very important for EMP, and he's got his General Bio for making sure it doesn't run into any storms. He sieges up the Libs, he lands the EMPs, and then he stims the Bio because he's not committed until he gets all that stuff. Yeah, notice he's only controlling the Bio units there. He's splitting them back. And now, here's the Adept Shade. Now he's coming back. He locks in the depots. He's bringing any units back, but he's not watching his army, and bam! The storms hit. And at this point, TY is like, oh, shit. He scrambles. And as soon as his army's out of harm's way, he goes and deals with the Warp Prism. Now let's look at Stats. Because that skirmish has ended, and Stats won it. Stats got about as good as he was going to get there. Now, Stats knows he has a good revelation on that army. That's first. He knows Storm is finishing. His control groups, he has his main army, His Phoenixes... Now notice this. This is when you can kind of tell he's under stress and he's really prioritizing what he wants to do. Because he's no longer using his Phoenixes for lifts. So his Phoenixes are on the main control group because he's just like, well, I can't lift and cast spells and make sure my army's in the right position all at the same time. So he's added his Phoenixes to his ground control group with everything but the Templar. The Templar on a separate hotkey so he can easily jump to them and still cast all the other spells he wants. And he's got that War Prism. He knows how important the War Prism is. He's put that War Prism on 3, which is a completely... Like, usually you put your Phoenixes there or something so you can cast the spells. But he knows it's more important to make sure that War Prism does exactly what it needs to do than it is to control his Phoenixes right now. That's just a decision he's made, that instead of actively microing the Phoenixes, he's going to make sure that War Prism gets in. And that's actually how he wins this fight. He sees the EMPs. He's manually controlling the Templar back. He's added a couple more into his control group there at that split second. And he pulls back, and he actually already had the War Prism ready, but he jumps to it. And he shades in. He doesn't even bother controlling the War Prism anymore. He's like, okay, the army's not moving. He moves forward, lands the storms. He doesn't care about his Phoenixes getting hit. They're not as squishy as Marines. But yeah, he's not even looking at the War Prism anymore. The War Prism did its job. It kept TY busy for a couple seconds. It dragged units back. All right, back to everybody. But that's a little bit of a breakdown. That's the one, I'd say about 2 to 3 seconds there of focus on the War Prism from both players allowed stats to jump on TY's army because it wasn't spread out, it wasn't set up, and he wasn't watching to hit the EMPs. So, despite all that, stats still doesn't have like a game-winning army because his upgrades aren't there. He doesn't have that much splash damage outside of the Templar. So, he just got TY off his back, but there's a long way to go to win the game. He still has to take another couple fights like that, and there's a planetary over here. There's only actually one ghost, so that's pretty bad here. And if TY doesn't raise these depots, still, Stats, even seeing the depots down, Stats is not going to just come barreling up that ramp like, well, I guess I'm coming inside. Like, because it's a trap. He's going to get locked in. And this is the hard part about the map, is you can't really go up a ramp. There's a single Liberator, there's a couple EMPs, and all those units are going to get all stacked up. He actually, how did he see? How did he see that medevac get split off? Because he moved his Phoenixes back. He must have seen it at some point. I'm not exactly sure how he did, though. Oh, there's an observer. Oh my god, look at this placement. I'm like, how did you see those medevacs? There's no... Oh my. So sneaky. And the scan doesn't quite touch it. It's close enough that TY wouldn't expect it. Usually you expect observers like out here. But... So he's been able to jump back. And he gets vision. I think he just saw... No, he didn't quite see the edge of it. Yeah, I like that. As soon as he realizes he's probably not going to get damage there, he drops out. And this is enough, like, Stats, he's been jockeying around at the front, but that's not a game-winning army once again. He needs pretty much his army to be together to be able to fight into a planetary. And if there are any... He can't go up a ramp, is what I'm saying. Like, without the Phoenixes, he can't go up a ramp. Because EMP, because Liberators. Now, notice how he's... Well, that was actually pretty bad, but he did actually get a flank Templar. So that was good. He has a couple flanking Templar. You can never have it so one EMP hits all your Templar, because that is how you lose games. Well, he scans. He sees the observer, but it's still alive because it's right on the edge of wherever you'd scan. Good EMPs, but the Templar, as long as the Templar have energy. Now, is there any kicker here? Because the way Stats wins is with kickers. He needs, like, an Adept Shade, maybe Dark Templar. Does he have DTs yet? He doesn't have a Dark Shrine. That's something he definitely could add on. He's tech switching into probably Colossi, maybe Disruptors. To have, you really do want, the best way to win against a Terran who's pretty solidly on 4 bases is by a combination of damage. If your only splash damage is Templar, it can be countered. But if you have Colossi, and you have Templar, and you have Archons, it takes a very solid fight from a Terran player. Like, they have to control everything well. Whereas, if all you have are Templar, even if they get caught out of position, if they land a couple good EMPs, they can turn that fight. So that's what Stats is saying here. He's settling in. He's saying, okay, this is not going to end with this army. I need something else. At the same time, TY, I wouldn't be surprised to see a fusion core for Liberator range. He's still making ghosts. Does he have 3-3? He hasn't started 3-3, so we haven't reached the full late game yet. But we should, in the next 20 seconds, I would say, start 3-3, and if I were him, I'd make a fusion core. Of course, assuming I had 200 more APM than I do as well, is assuming that. And he's got a turret up here. These are most... Oh, well, the Hero Immortal, that was not the greatest Warp Prism placement. But this triple drop on the left side, he doesn't need... Like, he has too many medevacs almost now, so he's trying to find a good use for him. Because he doesn't want more than, like, 6 or 7 medevacs with his army. There's already cannons. The cannons are just there to buy time so he can react. They're not actually there to outright kill the drop, because he knows he won't. He needs units, but... And sensor towers everywhere, in classic TY fashion. There's the fusion core for advanced ballistics, that Liberator range. And once... Now, Liberator range is not just for fighting, but at some point... Well, he does have Phoenixes, but at some point... Oh, at the same time... Stats thinking the same thing at the same time, like, okay, wait a second. If we're doing this, we're going all the way. So he's going to be going towards the Tempest. And he's getting his 2-3. So Stats is pretty much caught up in upgrades. He's actually going to pass. Yeah, he's going up to the Tempest. So both of them thinking of, okay, this game doesn't end like this. Neither of us can kill each other with these armies. How can we? Ooh, big mistake there. And now you see the EMP. If that had hit all the Templar, TY stims everything and just takes the fight. And now this is also a pretty dirty positioning. Kind of awkward for everybody involved. But here we go. Here's the kicker. Unfortunately, right on top of an army. TY already kind of prepared for this over here. But there's so much happening on the map right now. There was that army in the middle. There's this drop on this side. There's a counterattack over here. It looks like the second base has been lifted. He doesn't want these old, useless, mined-out patches. All right, he wants some new, fresh, dank mineral patches over here. He's all about that. And there's the advanced ballistics. He's going towards the Liberators. At the same time, we're going to see Colossi and Tempest. So these are the endgame units. Tier 3, upgrades, and units on either side. He already has a decent ghost count. 7 ghosts against 8 High Templar. And most of those not most, but a lot of those High Templar won't even be that close to the fight. Ooh. He actually has to storm to kill the Marines that were sniping him. And once again, so many things happening. Thank you, Ping Vane. Welcome back 12 months in a row. But there was this on the left-hand side, which canceled the base, and it's going to force a reaction on the Stats. We've got the armies kind of skirmishing in the middle, and then we've got a counterattack on the right. At any point, any of these things could win the game. Like, against a lesser player, they don't pay attention. Adepts kill 30 SCVs, and that's the ball game right there. Or Liberators siege up, or a drop comes in and snipes a base or two, and that's it. So, yeah, there's a reaction immediately here. The Adepts will shade away. There's a drop over on this side. It will be reacted to. They're jockeying for position in the middle of the map at the same fucking time. The feedback cancels the stipe because it does damage. Rest in pieces. This drop still hasn't been cleaned up, but he did pull the probes away, and he's going to react once again. I don't know how you got here. This Adept got here. Fortunately, there's nothing left here. And the advanced ballistics is almost done. He actually picks up the drop in time. He's going to go towards the main base. It looks like he'll make it as well. So both players getting random units into the other's main. And we have the Colossi. We have shield upgrades beginning. And I get the question a lot. Why don't Protoss players seem to go for shield upgrades when you go for shields? Pretty much after everything else. Because shield upgrades, one, they cost more than armor or ground weapons. Two, shields regenerate. Armor protects your units from losing HP because they can't heal it. Shields, on the other hand, you lose some shields, those shields will come back as long as the unit stays alive. And shields, the reason it's more expensive is because it applies to all units and also applies to buildings. So in general, shields are the final priority. Of course, he doesn't have +3 weapons, but I think that's because his +2 just finished up as well. Interestingly, now, the reason I think, I can't tell you for sure, but the reason Stats went for armor, he prioritized getting his armor upgrades before getting his weapons upgrades. And most of the time you see Protoss go for weapons, right? It's because he knew that his army will be reliant on High Templar for splash damage. Pretty much everything else was just a shield to protect the High Templar. So he keeps those Adepts alive for longer. I mean, he's still getting the weapons upgrades, but he got the armor first just to keep him alive until he could get to the storms and everything else he needed. Because even if the Adepts are doing more damage, they're still going to die to mass bio. He needs the splash damage, so armor helps protect him. And he's not going for, like, his splash damage isn't based on upgrades. Storm is based on the storm upgrade, not a weapons upgrade. So he's less reliant on doing direct damage. Alright, we have another Adept. There's always another Adept shade. Just, at this point, TY knows. TY just assumes there's another Adept shade. This drop actually made it in, and the Mothership Core finally sees some action. And Advanced Ballistics is done. And there are no Tempests on the field. So this is the hardest part for a Protoss, is deciding exactly how to handle this. And it looks like TY is actually going to come back with his Liberators, and Stats will push across because he can no longer fight those Liberators heads up until he gets Tempest. Good EMPs. And he will just obliterate all these Stalkers. Stats tried to jump on that, but he jumped into a pile of a bed of nails right there, pretty much. He did, I mean, at this point, well, he's almost out of money. I was about to say he has a bank. He doesn't. He actually doesn't have the money to do that. But most of the time at this point, you'll trade 4 or 5 Stalkers for a Liberator, especially while you're just buying time to get Tempest. Now, that was more than 4 or 5 Stalkers, but, like, still, the idea was there. You saw what Stats wanted to do. It just didn't come together as well as he might have liked. But, Stats had the prepper. Oh, you can't fight that. Now the Liberators are just zoning him out. Those Stalkers regret their life choices now. But this is the problem. He doesn't have the Tempest. The EMPs are landing. Stats is starting to get kind of cut off. He's getting choked out right now. And he has to walk either from the back, up a hill, or all the way around. Oh my god, so many Templar, but he has to morph them into Archons. Yeah, Stats' main army is not here. He's just getting zoned out. He has to give up this base, pretty much. He just can't fight this without Tempest. That's just how it is. That's just the way it be. Oh god, the Liberators. Jesus. Dispensing indiscriminate freedom across most of the map. Yeah, the Adepts are going out, because at this point, having a few more Adepts isn't going to win you the fight. You need to kill the Liberators. It's that simple. But, I mean, even shading these in isn't going to do much. TY has the money. He doesn't need more money. He just needs to cut off Stats. It seems weird to say. It's like, well, Stats is pretty fucked here, even though he's at 191 supply. It's just that advantage in tech that TY had and that he's so good at is now paying off. He just killed 2 bases, going for 3 now, by just having his tech out a minute quicker. Yeah, where is he even trying to shade here? There's a Planetarian Liberators. This is ill-fated. Ooh. Well, that's awkward. The Tempests are pushing this back. They're pushing it back, but now, TY, does he already have ship weapons? He has +1 ship weapons. And he's producing 4 Vikings and 4 Ghosts. He's not even making bio units anymore. Those are useless. I'm getting all the fun stuff now. And he killed 2 bases of Stats. Even though he didn't kill Stats, that was critical damage. TY honestly probably has too many SCVs right now. He'd like some Adepts to come in and kill his mineral line or 2. How many Tempests are we up to? And does he have air weapons? He only has 2 Tempests. He has +1 air weapons, but only 2 Tempests means he can't one-shot those Liberators. And Vikings do a lot. Tempests only are really good against small unit counts. Against Vikings, not very good. How many Templar? Plenty of Templar. The ranged Liberators are denying mining at the only base. The Phoenix is finally going to clear them up. And this is actually a good counterattack here from Stats. But the thing is, he's starting to think about base trading a Terran. Oh, those EMPs. Stats intentionally. He has the observer. Intentionally avoiding that cliff edge. There's no Templar down here. The Templar are holding back until the fight is committed. It might be a bit on the late side, though. Stats is losing a fight on every single angle. At the same time, 4 Immortals, well, he could have used those on the ground, but 4 Immortals take out that planetary with barely so much as a scratch. But unfortunately, Stats is losing everywhere. Also, that's a Colossus right there. Let's go back. Let's take a look at this fight a little bit slower here. Okay, so how does this start out? First off, TY just goes straight up. Stats is kind of scrambling back to defend because he was caught a little bit far out on the map. So that gives TY the chance to set up his units, and Stats honestly just he's not even sure where to put his units now, just because there are liberation zones everywhere, and there are no Immortals to really keep the bio from closing in, and that's just GG. Like, he lost on every front of like a 3-front battle there. So TY finally just caught him out of position. It's not like Stats. The thing is, it's not like Stats fucked up one fight and that was the game. Like, it's not like when going into that fight, Stats, as long as Stats controls this well. Now here's the problem. Stats lost momentum a while back. I would argue that Stats has been kind of scrambling a lot of this game because he just has been behind on tech a decent chunk of the game. Ever since it kind of got to 4 bases and TY started going for the ranged Liberators, Stats has been scrambling to try to get counter damage, try to catch TY out of position. It never really felt like Stats was pushing up and forcing TY to react to him. It always felt like he was reacting to TY, even when he was doing those counterattacks, as there's like a drop over on this side. So TY has been winning this game, at least. I don't think the word mentally is accurate, but he's been winning this game momentum-wise for probably close to 10 minutes. But it wasn't until the ranged Liberators show up that you really see what that means. So TY just built up, and in going for those ranged Libs, even though they're both maxed out, he just has a stronger army if it's in the right position. So TY was able to finally pick a fight, and it was a very good one. Like, Stats in a better position might have held here, but he's still dealing with a Terran who has money in the bank, who has ranged Liberators, and he really doesn't have much. Like, if the storms had landed perfectly and he kills this entire army, it still isn't like a game-winning position for Stats is the problem. Just because TY can remake his army, and Stats doesn't have anything that breaks him too easily. He needed more Tempest, pretty much. In order to win a game like that, unless your opponent really fucks up, you need like 5 or 6 Tempests and 4 or 5 Colossi, with your Templar in the right spot to get the storms on the Vikings. He had like 3 Colossi, 2 Tempests, some really spread out fight. So he was never going to be able to take a winning fight unless TY messed that up. So it would have taken another couple minutes for Stats to get into a winning position. So that was game number 3. Oh, it was only 3. Okay. Well, hopefully you guys are enjoying my breakdown of the matches so far. That'll put TY up 2-1. And we're gonna go to a short intermission because I have to relog into Starcraft every single game because of the patch today. It feels like my Starcraft is gonna explode because it flickers for a while every time I do. That patch introduced a bug? No, it's the replays are from a previous patch. It just happens every time. Thank you, 5Nom. Welcome back. And if they're from a previous patch, even if the patch was today, it has to download a different version of the game. It's not a great system, but it's what we got to work with. The next map is Palladino. Wait. Did we already do Palladino? Oh, Palladino, not Proxima. Okay. Palladino Terminal. Almost there. We're so close. Who do you think is gonna win? Yeah, this will be on YouTube. All right. In the top left, we got TY. In the bottom right is stats. So, that last game, it did feel like, well, Abyssal Reef is a pretty tough map for a Protoss player to do what Stats likes to do. Like that Phoenix is Adept with counterattacks and all that. That's Stats' preferred style. But he wasn't really able to get anything going just because the map, you can shut down more prisms, you can shut down counterattacks pretty well. And that allowed TY to kind of take control of the game after he put on the pressure early on, and then eventually capitalized with the ranged Liberators. So TY is hiding his barracks in his own main. So that is a pretty clever move, because it's likely that Stats will send a scout out, and he is right now. And then he'll think there's a chance he thinks it's a proxy race. It's not a guarantee, but there's a chance, and then maybe he overreacts. Maybe he goes for one base, or maybe he makes a zealot when he doesn't need to. Now, it's like, well, you could use the Zealot to go do damage on the other side. Yeah, well, it gets... Oh, wait a second. You know what? No, he's not scouting. He's one basing. So, this mind hack is going to do nothing, effectively here. Stats is just not even sending a probe out. He is making a Zealot, but he doesn't have any knowledge. High game length. Oh, yeah, it is 6 minutes. I knew this was a short one. You'll never know. You already watched these games, or you should have. I'm more talking about... other things rather than just. And here we go in the bottom right hand corner from South Korea, the best Protoss player in the entire world. It is Splice Gaming Stats. Do you want that? All right, go look up the YouTubes in the case. That's not what we're here for. It's a proxy Stargate. And also, this has been scouted. He's going directly to it. He knows that there are a couple things. It could be a proxy robo, or it could be a proxy star, and he's going to see the Stargate right off the bat. It's very unlikely to be anything but that. Did TY see it? Yeah, he sees it. He knows. But at the same time, it's going to be comboed with an overcharge rush. So this pulls his attention, and TY's already committed. He's already committed to an expansion. So... At this point, the thing is, it's very difficult for TY to both have defense against a Stargate. Oh, God. Not getting that bunker is so big. Thank you, Will Nodis. 4 months in a row. Oh, my God. How many SCVs must die so this bunker can just die anyways? Well, that's really bad. Yeah, Stats is just doing this right now. The bunker was a bit late. And, so TY is just... doing everything right. I mean, Stats is doing it right here. And he's going to expand behind because he's already killed 4 SCVs. And the Oracle's going to be showing up soon. You need 3 Marines to kill a Mothership Core. And you need 6 Marines to kill an Oracle when it's individually. Well, the Widowmine will burrow, so he will live for now. But now TY is supply blocked. He lost all of his depots. That's not an exaggeration. He has no depots. There are no depots left. So he can't actually, he couldn't drop down supply because he doesn't have a depot to drop it on. Yeah, trying to sneak a Widowmine in, but Stats has already done critical damage. Well, the worker count is 26 to 22, which isn't game ending, but there's no starport to bring Widowmines across the map. There's no engineering bay for turrets for long-term defense against the Oracle. It's just, he doesn't have anything here. Oh, and the Widowmine dies. That's pretty much, like, this is such a not fun position for a Terran player. But they're like, you know, The only real way I'm gonna be able to come back in this game is if they fly into a Widow Mine and then the Widow Mine dies. It's like, well, the only real way I come back in this game is if he has a brain aneurysm. The SCV will get in. He will see he's expanding. So at this point, TY is going to try to break out. He needs to do his best here. He can't sit at the top of his ramp. If it was a one base, he could try to sit at the top of his ramp. But if he's expanding, TY needs to get down this ramp, needs to take his next base. It's just, these are the perfect units to keep him from doing that. He's got the Mothership Core, he's got a couple Phoenixes to lift the key units and defend against this Viking. He's got Oracles to melt the Marines. So TY, does he pull any SCVs along with this? It looks like he's just going to try to macro it out. But it is 35. That's not too bad. TY's done the best that he could here, pretty much. This is actually... loses the Viking. But, I mean, Stats just chose the right build. TY didn't quite react how he needed to. And now Stats has a pretty tight grip on the match so far. Honestly, at this point, Stats can just kind of put these units together. There's no more Widow Mines. There's a Viking and a Cyclone. He can lift the Cyclone. There's not even enough Marines to fight the Oracles, really. So, yeah, without a bunker. The bunker's coming up now, but there's plenty of time here. Yeah, he can lift the Cyclone, he can fight the Viking, and the Oracles and the Adepts will do the rest. There you go. And he ends him. GG. Good build by Stats. We're on. So, TY made the mistake of thinking that you can expand on this map, when instead, you should just one base all in the shit out of people, because they're probably doing that, and that's how you start a macro game. That's a more reliable strategy. So, now I have to restart my SC2 again. God damn it. For that 6-minute game. Killing the depots and the bunker, like, it was already... Like, even if he didn't kill a single SCV, if he stopped that bunker and he killed the depots, TY's already behind. But in killing the depots and 4 SCVs and the bunker and a couple Marines, TY is in a deep hole already. Like, if he just lost the depots and he just lost the bunker and held everything else without really losing anything, he still is in a pretty rough spot, but it's definitely not game over. But then he lost the Widow Mine. Ugh. And then he lost a Viking, and it just got worse and worse. The next map is going to be... Belshire Vestige. Alright. I'm loading it up. How's everybody doing tonight? Hopefully you're enjoying the breakdown of the IEM Katowice finals between TY and Stats. So, how's the weather? All right, there we go. Nobody saw that. All right. So TY, he just got cheesed out. Stats, good execution, good build choice. TY was going for, like, he did that little mind hack barracks, and now that factors in, actually. I didn't even think about that.
Your dedication will be
Thank you,
rewarded.
Dr. Gallifreyan. Welcome back.
Evan
Is
Hansen.
that a movie? But I didn't even think about that. He made the barracks to try to hide it and maybe freak out a probe that comes in. He hid the barracks and he didn't build it at the wall. He tried to make it look like a proxy racks. Of course, Stats didn't scout. So he didn't have the barracks at the wall, which means he lost the wall and didn't have really anything to protect him. So he had to react even more strongly. So if he had built the barracks like he's building it now, would he have been better off? I think he would have. Because at least that way you guarantee the Adept doesn't get up the ramp. It's still going to be... You're still probably going to lose depots, but you don't have to overreact like he did, and you don't have to lose 4 SCVs. So, actually, TY, with his little mind game in the last match, ended up giving Stats an opportunity to use the build that he was just... He didn't scout anything. He was just doing it. He was just doing his proxy Stargate. It actually worked out for Stats there. TY played into his hand without knowing what other player was doing. Alright, so we're going to have a Reaper this game. A standard probe scout now, off the Nexus. Going to come up. I mean, you already know the barracks timing based on the command center. That's not a CC first. No one goes CC first. So he knows it's a 1-rax expand. That's pretty much all it could be. Just the math doesn't check out for anything else. And it's going to be a quick factory. We just don't see the bio timings. Now, the reason you don't see very often, every once in a while you'll get a player who does it, like Polt. But the reason you don't see like the 2-1-1, the stim medevac timings in Terran versus Protoss is because Protoss, mostly photon overcharge is why. It's pretty easy to defend a direct attack as a Protoss, especially early on because you have Adepts to deal with Marines, you have photon overcharge for basic defense and key locations. That's why Terran players like to go for that really tech-heavy. You'll have a Widowmine drop or a Liberator. You force them to react in ways that don't help them later on. Like building a pylon back here or having stalkers back at home instead of maybe harassing the front of the Terran base doesn't help a Protoss player get into a better position. So going for these tech... Also, it's cheaper. Doing a Widowmine drop with a couple Widowmines and 1 medevac is a lot cheaper than investing right off the bat in stim and in bio units. And also, it's quicker. As well. If they just happen to come up and see, or if they scout in with an Oracle or something that you're going for a medevac drop, they have plenty of time to prepare whatever they're doing. Of course, right now, we see some of that cheap tech harass, and it's going to be a couple Hellions coming in. There's no pylon here. I like this, splitting 1 Hellion off. We got the Reaper as well, combining its damage. 1 Hellion will die. Really fancy plays out of TY here. Looks like good execution so far, but Stats also did a great job in minimizing damage there. He stuck on 1 Hellion, he chased the Reaper on the other side, so he will kill both Hellions. So 4 probes for 2 Hellions, that's okay. Not great, but Stats did a great job here. Now we see that double Widowmine drop coming out. Yeah. So he has those Adepts early on, and Adepts aren't... They don't react that quickly to things. He can't just shade up and kill the Widowmines before they drop out. If he's not already there when the Widowmines are dropping, then the Adepts can't do anything until he has the detection. So he's using this Reaper to get the drop in. The Mothership Core pulled out of position for a split second. And that split second will be enough for him to get both Widowmines down, get the medevac out, and kill 6 probes. Really clever play there. TY using every unit, every little tool he has. And he brought... The Mothership Core was trying to cut off the Reaper, and it did, but it brought it out of position just for 3 seconds. And that was enough. That was the difference between the overcharge, killing the Widowmines, and potentially killing the medevac, and 6 probes of damage, pretty much. Clever girl. We do have the Liberator follow-up siege tanks for basic defense against any sort of counterattacks. Obviously, without a Warp Prism, or even with a Warp Prism, just having a couple siege tanks there is going to be enough to defend early on before he gets upgrades or a reasonable amount of units. Alright, extended thermal lances on the way. That Robo Bay action, a bit of a precarious location. I mean, it's on the outside of the Nexus rather than on the opposite side, so if there is a drop later on, there's a potential for it to get sniped, even though it's not like right at the edge of the base or anything. He's not trying to hide it from a scan. And it seems like this time, Stats is going for... Okay, you know what? I think this is a good time. We can already see where these players are going with their builds. I'm going to break it down. So right now, Stats is going for the quick Colossi. He did the Robo first into Observers to deflect Widowmine drops. He had a few units out to make sure he could deal with any attacks or drops or whatever. And he's going for Colossi on a later third base. Once again, he's going for it before he gets the Forge or even before he gets the Twilight Council. So this means Stats is more focused on just unit count rather than upgrades, and that allows him to expand a little bit quicker. TY at the same time is going for the tank medevac push that you'll see a lot of players do early on. I think he'll realize pretty quickly that he shouldn't be able to kill this third base unless Stats makes a big mistake. So we'll have to see, does he go into like some sort of two-base timing, or does he go for a third command center and add a second starport to make Vikings? That'll be his decision to make as soon as he realizes the timing, which he will in the next 30 seconds or so. So what we should happen is TY trying to jockey around, try to ideally get siege tanks in position to maybe siege up the base. He'll probably start a third command center in just a couple seconds here. He's even bringing another tank out. Is that 3 tanks? Okay, 3 tanks is a bit more than usual. Usually you'll see 2. 3 tanks might be enough to kill the third. He doesn't have stim yet, but he is going to have combat shields. So the focus is really on the tanks. This is a specifically timed push. So Stats is not going to have Thermal Lance or a second Colossus for a while here. So I predict that TY is going to be able to put a lot of pressure on. And, oh yeah, I remember this game now. That's what he does. I'm not going to pretend to predict anything, but TY can put a lot of pressure on with this because those units won't die easily to the Colossi, and the Colossi don't have enough range to outrange the tanks. So I believe TY actually goes towards the Nat with this. But yeah, when I was watching these games, this was when I would usually be sleeping these games were on. So I was pretty far gone. I was trying to watch and like pay attention, but I wasn't 100%. Let's put it that way. Wasn't even close. But yeah. Now, Stats is doing whatever he can to push him out. But there's no Thermal Lance, there's no second Colossi, which means like you can't actually fight this. I think at this point, yeah, TY, his intention from the start here was to siege up the Nat. He wasn't even going to worry about a third base. He wasn't going to give Stats any time. This is actually a really cool build. And it's partially because of the way the map is laid out. Oh god. Targeting the Colossi, you saw the siege tanks specifically target them. Because obviously the Colossi are the backbone of the defense. Another overcharge is used. He has one more banked up. And that was it. So now he's just trying to wait out another Colossi. He has an observer in place for now. He's going to come down here, maybe take this out. Will he actually go? Yep, he's bringing the units down to deal with it. But now, at this point, TY has a third base at his third already, and the forward third as well. So he doesn't need to kill Stats. He just needs to bleed them out, and that's what he's doing. I actually really like this tank push. And that's, I mean, he has a turret. I think he has vision of that observer. It's just he hasn't gone over to kill it yet. He has a bunker. He has a Liberator. And he has kind of a chokehold on Stats at the moment. I mean, he unsieges, and he actually pushes up a little. I think he's confident now. There's no upgrades. There's no glaives. There's no blink. There's just the Colossi. And if he deals with that, then there's a ticking clock right now. There's one more round of Adepts. He'll probably shade forward and just try to break out, but it should fail. Stim is done. There's no +1, but Stim is done. That bunker and those Widow Mines gonna do ooh. As the HP continues to drop, Stats managed to get a counterattack out. This is what he needed earlier, but it's almost too late now. He doesn't have the economy to warp in enough Adepts. He has to go. That's it. Yeah, he's going to. Wow, he actually canceled the shade. I'm not sure about that move. I think it would have been better not to cancel the shade, to be honest. Maybe he didn't want to try to walk the Colossi through the turrets, but yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, there's no good answer here. He's down by 30 supply. He's losing his second Nexus to a 3-base Terran, so maybe he was scared of Widow Mines at the back. Maybe he thought there were more. But that is game. TY has had a hold on this game for since those tanks sieged up the first time, pretty much. So that was a really nice build. So now a couple things I noticed. Can I actually go back? A couple things I noticed was that TY, usually you only go for 2 barracks. He went for a 3rd barracks, but he didn't even have an add-on on it. We'll move a little bit over here. So that was entirely just to get a bit higher Marine count. That was the entire focus there. Yeah. And he actually built a tech lab on the starport? Okay. I'm just looking at this build so I can steal it. Yeah. And he's just trying to get Marines, tanks, and he kept 1 medevac alive, and that was enough for him. He's not actually... Yeah, he makes 1 Liberator. He doesn't have the gas to build out of a reactor starport at the moment, so... And then... He moves out, what, around like 5:45 or so? This tank is finishing. What is that? What are you doing there? Really? Really? It's like, I gotta get these Marines out so quick. I'm gonna get them out 3 seconds quicker by boosting this medevac instead of just walking them out. It's okay. What a little fancy move there. And then he moves out. He saw the 3rd base, so I think that's what prompted the exact timing and the placement. Maybe if there wasn't a 3rd. I think if there's not a 3rd, TY doesn't, because obviously stats could have more units or more tech or both. If he doesn't have a 3rd, he's not as committed to the push. But since he knew stats was going to a 3rd, I think he was more confident that he could move in and actually start sieging him up instead of just containing him. So there we go. We're going to go to the mandatory intermission. Because of the patch, and go on to game number 6.
It's about time for some new noise storm. Coming out this week, this is Escape.
And this is a banger. As I have to restart SC2 again. 2 more games, boys. Remember, it will be on YouTube if you haven't watched, or you want to watch all of it at once. The next map will be Honor Grounds. I do forget what happened on this map. I might be reminded, but this was the point where I was like trying to keep my eyes open. So, like that last game, it wasn't until I saw him moving out with the tanks. I'm like, oh yeah. Alright. That song is Noise Storm Escape. Oh, the dramatic music. Okay. Do 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 do. You know. Alright. Welcome back to IEM Katowice. It is game 6 of the grand finals. The winner will be taking home $100,000. The loser, a new car. Okay. In the top left is stats. Top right, TY. We're on Honor Grounds, and I have a lot to say about Honor Grounds. A lot. Because this is probably the widest variety in map pool that you can have. Just simply enough. Or, well, it's the widest variety of games that you can have on a singular map. So, Honor Grounds is a 4-player map. It is the largest map in the map pool. It has the most bases, has the most space between the bases. And it's rotationally symmetrical. Which means, when you go to the next base, there's the same angle that you would go in from the base counterclockwise to it. You know what? I'm confusing myself with that explanation. So if you look at the bases, you'll see every time you get to another base, it's just turned by 90 degrees. All right, that's what it means. So this actually affects the game pretty dramatically. Because, for example, if they're in cross positions, there's the maximum distance. There's a huge distance between the players. It takes a while for the units to get all the way across, Adepts to shade, medevacs to fly, but there's also a lot of angles to easily attack. So that means you can outmaneuver players. Whereas if you're in these positions here, Stats has relatively easy access to TY's base. He has to work a little bit harder to get to the main or attack in, whereas TY, if he can lock down against any warp prisms or anything like that, inside of his main, he can focus more at the front. So right now it's going to be a little bit easier for Stats to harass early on with things like warp prisms, and a little bit more difficult for TY to focus on any sort of drop or Liberator play just because of how the map is laid out for them right now. Of course, you do have a high ground. You effectively have two bases with access to. It's a large ramp. Not that big of a factor, especially in Terran versus Protoss. But it can factor in, especially for early pushes or anything like that. You're a bit more vulnerable. But it is a high ground. It is a high ground, which means it is a bit easier to defend. And the Reaper comes up. The Mothership Core is out, but... Ooh, Stats with the bait. But he jumps in. What a placement on that Reaper. He saw there was no pylon there. He knew he would be safe. I'm pretty sure TY has seen the other pylon now. No, but he knows it's somewhere. And finding pretty much the only location he could jump that Reaper in without getting it killed. So, alright. TY, and once again with a double Hellion Reaper. Now, I'm not sure if this will be as successful as the previous one, and the previous one wasn't very successful, but it depends on where the overcharges are used. Because what I think he'll do, he'll jump a Reaper in on this side, he'll try to bait out the overcharge, then run the Hellions by. I don't think you bring all the units in together, because then one overcharge can shut it all down at the front. We'll have to see how Stats reacts. He's got that safe robo to start, and he's got more gateways on the way. Yeah, looks like TY is going to be taking my advice. Stats hits the overcharge. He doesn't have another one quite yet. He does have a pylon in place, but this should get some kills. Just kidding. Looks like Stats actually already prepared for this. Well, this Hellion wants... This Hellion has a dream, and it gets a kill. Okay, 2 kills. There was another kill on the other side. I have already seen I saw the finals, but around game 4 or 5, I started fading. It was up much later than I usually am. So I don't actually remember what happens in this match. I mean, I'll remember bits and pieces, but I was in and out at that point. I was definitely not putting as much attention into it as I am now. I would be surprised if I was putting 25% as much attention. So, I didn't even remember that Stats went Colossi, to be honest. But he is. Or maybe Disruptor drops. I would love Disruptor drops, but I think both TY is too good. The thing about Disruptors is there's like a bell curve at the level at which they're most effective. Like, against the like in Neeb's hands, against the North American Grandmaster ladder, Disruptor drops can be disgusting, like Puck. But TY is just so good, and these Korean Terrans are so good at microing. It's so unreliable. Because when you go for a Disruptor, especially Disruptor drop, you invest time on the Robo, which is very valuable, and just the straight-up money for usually Gravitic Drive and a War Prism. So a Disruptor drop is just an unknown quantity, and it's very unlikely to get the kind of money shot that you would want at this level. I like this. The sneaky Widow Mines here to snipe a War Prism. Remember, 1 Widow Mine doesn't kill it, but 2. And he will be minding. Mine. Okay, never mind. Never. Oh. Okay. All right. Moving on. Well, that's a really good... Like I said, the only real way for Stats to have access to the base is by flying usually around that top side. We got another tank push, but this is less of a... Actually, no, this is the same push as the last game. If it ain't broke, says TY. The thing is, The distance is further. It's more of an open field. There's not like a little cliff to work with like he had on Belshir Vestige, and he can't just go for the second base. He has to fight into the third. So very sneaky. I think an observer saw those mines at some point. Yeah. This time, you just see the difference now. Stats has a Colossi, he has Stalkers. He's pretty much gone. He didn't lose any meaningful amount of probes early either. Like, he didn't lose probes to a Widowmine drop. Last game, he lost probes to a Widowmine drop. He lost probes to Hellions. This game, he didn't. And this is the difference. It's a solid chunk more army. Extended Thermal Lance is done. And it looks like he's just going to fight. The Guardian Shield affects all that splash damage. He's not quite... Ooh! The Widowmine shot's actually hitting the tanks and helping out a lot. He wants to kill that sentry, but I think he's about to go home here. And everything will be taken out. It wasn't perfect, but it was a good breakout. And he was able to take out 3 tanks, a couple Widowmines, and it looks like even this medevac. Ooh! Slamming. So that's the difference. This time, Stats defended, and it was both the difference in Stats' defense and the map in general. And that extra 30 or 45 seconds overall that he got was all the difference in defending that attack. We see those medevacs going out. TY dropping down his 3rd command center, actually doing it immediately as it finished instead of trying to make that orbital. He already has so many SCVs. He's at 53. He's got full saturation on all these bases. He wants to get access to those fresh, dank mineral patches and isn't going to wait for an orbital command to do it. Now, Stats knows this double drop is out there, and he's respecting it, but he can't go out and kill it. He can't go hunting with 12 Stalkers, because then TY, if he drops again, like the sneaky devil he is... Alright, he's in position. We've already got the pre-charges. There's I think he has a couple pylons here to defend. It appears he is putting up some basic defenses against these drops. The double drop at the front. TY trying to poke and prod for any sort of damage, but he's not going to find it, because Stats is too smart for that. He's got the watchtower. It's just the map again. He can't really push into the front. The one angle he could get to the main is cut off by an observer. Stats pushes back. But, yeah, he's just deflected everything. He's just swatting it away. And TY right now is... Well, let's look at what's going good for TY. He's got upgrades on the way. Stats is just now finishing his forges. So if there's any way to really lose here, it's going to be on upgrades. I don't really see Stats dying to any sort of pressure right now. TY has a 4th base started. He's got his armory almost done for 2-2 immediately, as well as ship weapons for his Vikings and potentially Liberators. We do have a Warp Prism loaded up. There's actually a factory out there. I guess well, against a Colossus and Disruptor-based army, Widowmines aren't at a premium. This is a bit awkward, isn't it? Ooh, nice hit. He hits the Colossi in the face and kills 2 sentries. That's the best he could hope for, but this drop in the back at the same time as TY. He pulls back. He doesn't want to lose these medevacs while he's dealing with everything at home. Yeah, and Stats is just projecting himself all over the map. 6 SCVs went down, as did the Warp Prism to the Vikings. Oh god, these Widowmine hits. Just booby-trapping his retreat path there. As my voice cracks. So TY, I think at this point, has pretty much accepted that we're going. And once again, TY, the chess master, he realizes where this is going. And air superiority is most important. He's getting Liberators. He's got plenty of Vikings. I think he's realized that the Colossi count... I think he saw that Disruptor, actually. I'm pretty sure he ran over a Widowmine with the Disruptor. Which is why the Liberator switch has begun. In general, you want to switch to Liberators by the time you get about double-digit Vikings. Because at that point you have too much in Vikings and not enough in anything that actually kills the army. Is this off-center? Is it? No, I think it's good. I don't have a good eye for these things. I've only been playing I've only played 35,000 games. I don't know when to put where to put your base. Blink is on the way. Without the blink, he doesn't really have the ability to Blink is defensive and offensive. If you don't have it, you can't fight into a sieged up Liberators. You can't block Vikings from taking pot shots. But, okay, don't, TY, wake up. In general, it's just a good and necessary upgrade. It looks like another War Prism was obliterated. He got vision with the scan as well, so clever moves. So now that Blink is pretty much done, at this point, there are no siege tanks. There's no Liberator range. He can start poking at the very edge of these liberation zones. And now the only real thing to be scared about is like a big drop or counterattack of some kind. But for the most part, he's well defended. He's got an Observer over here. He's got Adepts over here. He's actually poking in. There's shade being thrown absolutely everywhere. Stats, so BM. But there are plenty of turrets. There's plenty of Liberators. This is not really a breakable location. That Liberator had a short and meaningless life, so like many of us. We actually have Shadow Stride being researched, which takes approximately 3 years to finish from the Dark Shrine. The DT Blink Fusion Core is on the way. The scan, he sees the Dark Shrine, but it's not like he didn't have turrets already. So... And there's the 4 medevac drop. This is the kind of play that TY is kind of forced to try to make. Otherwise, he's going to be pinned back the entire game. Yeah, the Adept Shady and out of location. Beautiful micro so far. Planetary's still pretty good, but he's going to get a decent chunk of SCV kills. He's going to keep TY busy for a little while, but this army is coming across. Advanced Ballistics is the difference. There's no Stargate. There's no Tempest. Once the Liberators are actually able to push back these armies, and the Adepts perfectly in position, they will get cleaned up if they do fight, but... Does he have concussive shells? Yeah. Some DTs are warped in as well. But this army should get finished off. If he tries to go to the main, that's a mistake. Stats is just waiting for it. Well, actually, no, wait a second. The one gap in the defense between the 3rd and the net, and that's 2 Forges with 2-2. That might just be too much damage. That's actually a huge deal, because TY has 3-3 on the way. And he just reset. He has to rebuild the Forges and restart upgrades that were almost done. There's going to be a 4-ish minute window where TY has 3-3 before Stats does. And that's if he... Oh my god, at the same time! His army came across the map and sieged up this location. And that's way too many liberation zones. How does he fight that? Okay, we're going to have to break this fight down. I'm not entirely sure how Stats is winning. Okay, yeah, we're gonna back that up. Apparently he fights it like that. So we're gonna do we're gonna go from each side. So Stats won this fight, but I'm gonna look at it from TY's perspective to start. We're gonna go back a little bit to the draw. Because this is what we're looking for. I'm actually going to do it on slower speed here. Or normal speed, which is slower than the game is played at. Because there's a lot of little control that's happening on either side that is hard to pick up on. And he sieges this up. He queues up the medevacs to get out and immediately focuses on this army. There are no medevacs with this, actually. Is a big part. He has the upgrades, but he's already stimmed his units, so they're already hurt. Yeah. And he's manually controlling the Vikings to move forward. Okay, let's look at those control groups. Now, this is very interesting. TY actually doesn't have his Bio Army hotkeyed. The Bio Army, only the Vikings, the Liberators, and the Medevacs, only the air units are hotkeyed right now. Because TY is just using his bio as kind of a filler. He fills in the gaps in between where his Liberators are sieged, where his Vikings are firing from, and where his Medevacs are helping out. So that's interesting. He's not being tied. Like, he doesn't want... If he put his Vikings on his bio hotkey, then there are two things that happen here. One, the Vikings aren't in the front of the fight here, taking out the Colossi. 2, the bio units are with the Vikings, and they're dying to the Colossi, neither of which is as good as none of those things happen. But yeah, he sees there aren't too many Stalkers quite yet, but then pulls back. And he stims again, so there's next to no bio really underneath this. Ooh. Oh, there! That's the difference was the disruptors. I didn't even see the disruptors in the original fight. Like, the fact he had stimmed his units, the medevacs aren't quite there yet, and those disruptors, they don't kill a ton, but they kill like 15 supply of bio, which allows the Stalkers to focus more. And to TY's credit, TY was actually microing against the disruptors. He was actually trying to dodge him. Of course, he got kind of pinned back. Yeah, and dropping down the Vikings. The medevacs are like, alright, what did we miss? But now what does TY do? He's just trying to get the fuck out of there now. Yeah, he starts more production up. Now this is just full retreat. Okay, now we're going to go back and see how Stats did it. Because still, even though there are some things that went unnoticed, let's see how he sets up his army. Okay, he has his disruptors hotkeyed. He has the rest of his army hotkeyed. I mean, I imagine just the army out here. I imagine all his like Stalkers and Adepts, they're not actually on a hotkey. They're just out there, and he'll flip his camera over to them. I can't tell what the camera locations, if any, they're using are, so. So he just finished up some Adept harass. He sees a scan here. Look at that. Look at that. That immediate... He saw the scan, and he's like, why would you scan there? Your army's not in front of me. Where is it? That's just instinct right there. He sees that scan. He's already looking for something to come in. And he moved those Adepts, like, just barely. And I think he's actually killing the rocks here. Yeah, he's killing the rocks. But he focused on the Adepts for a second there because he felt like there could be an attack from this angle. He's already set up like that, so. And then he's like, oh, wait a second. I see something. And now he sees the quad drop, and that gives him time for a warp-in. That gives him time to pull his army back as well. And he chooses to warp in a couple DTs, which help out. Force out a scan. Force him to actually control his army. And now he's actually caught out of position here. And he hurts when he loses this 2-2, I guarantee you. Stats realizing right now that he's fucked up. And this is actually pretty bad for Stats, because he has to pull this entire army back. And he lost this 2-2, so he's kind of scrambling, so he gets pulled. Oh! Did he hit it? Did he hit the Select All Army hotkey? I'm gonna back up. I want to see if he hit the Select All Army hotkey again. We'll be able to tell in just a second. Nope. He kept his cool, for the most part. If those Adepts had come back to try to deal with this. But, he wasn't fully panicking. He was still keeping his cool there. If he had brought those Adepts back, that's indicating that he's like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing here. I need everything. But now, you look at that. Just look at that. You see 12 Liberators. How many is that? 9 Liberators. Well, every Liberator looks like 3 Liberators to a Protoss. We all know that. So, he's repowering his gates. He's starting to realize, okay, shit's about to go down. And he's trying to skirt around here. And he just blinks in. Shoots out the disruptor shots at the same time as the blink. And he's just maneuvering around where the Liberators aren't sieged. So that was actually really beautifully done. There just wasn't enough bio on the ground there, and Stats was not afraid. That was actually very impressive. Like, most players see that army and immediately log on to the Battle.net forums after rage quitting. Stats sees that army and he says, I think I can take this. And he does. Convincingly. The medevacs were 10 seconds away from the fight when he started it. If he had the medevacs, it'd be harder to get through that bio. The Liberators were still partially sieged up on the 4th base. So he didn't have them. I don't think he thought Stats would actually take that fight. I think TY was a bit surprised that Stats was actually fighting into that. But he did it. But yeah, I think that is the case. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. OMGG. The army finally comes back, but there's no home to come back to. And Stats has pretty much solidified this game by convincingly taking that fight. Yeah, that's just... He didn't need to kill all those, but he did.
I expected so much.
Thank you. I can't play any
Here's
videos.
the video for your intermission. Don't need to
Because
watch it
copyright.
all, but it's
I'm not risking it. It could get the entire video muted on Twitch and YouTube. Maybe after the series. But yeah, so Stats has pretty much tied this one up. There's a triple drop, but if Stats keeps his cool back here, even if he loses the base and the probes, it's just there's no real way. Oh god, why are the libs sieging up there? And Stats is like, you know what? Whatever. He doesn't even have his 2-2 done, but he doesn't need it. But yeah, so many probes did go down. He's down to 43. There's 39 SCVs. Okay, TY is still alive. He has 3-3, but he just doesn't have any medevacs. And now he doesn't really have any Liberators. He has 1 Liberator, 3 medevacs, and 2 Vikings, and all 3 medevacs on the other side of the map. And this is TY's last mining base. So Stats has cleaned it up. Notice how diligent he was. As soon as he saw TY even bringing some of his army over, he wasn't like, you know what, I'll just kill all his bases. He killed the army, or he killed what he could, and then he went for the base. Because he didn't want a base trade at Terran, which is smart. Some DTs here. Does Stats actually have? He has 1 orbital. His only orbital with any scans was lifted at that last second when the DTs come in. And already TY is so far behind, but... Alright, so that's going to bring us to 3-3. Game number 7, who will win? It could go either way, which I was kind of surprised at, by the way. I was surprised it actually went to Game 7. But anything could happen. Back to this banger. My SC2 is like frozen. The fuck? Did my SC2 actually freeze? Oh my god. Alright, and now, the final match on Cactus Valley. Nathanius had a good point when he tweeted that now, instead of having Dasan Station as Game 7, as the map that nobody wants to play, we have Cactus Valley as the final map. Which kind of speaks to, at least, the Terran-biased map pool, Kappa. But still, like, just the map pool in general. It's been a history of SC2 where Game 7 would sometimes be on the most ridiculous maps because nobody wanted to play them. Like, but Cactus Valley is pretty well accepted as a solid map, so. Alright, and we're in game number 7. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed my breakdown so far. We got one more to go. It's 3-3. TY versus Stats for $100,000. So a couple people asked the level. I know we got a lot of players here who are newer players who maybe literally haven't watched StarCraft before my stream. Let's put it this way. The level of these players is that whoever wins this one game takes home $100,000. So that should answer your question. What the? Who's observing? Who is? Damn it! Also, I just realized I had the observer camera. Alright. So TY is opting for the gas first. He's not proxying anything. It doesn't look like he's going to go double gas. I honestly forget what happens in this game. I think I was fully faded by this point. Like, I think I was barely keeping my eyes open. Alright. Alright. Sorry about that. Where's my cough button? Well, that came out of nowhere. Okay. So, luckily for stats, very luckily, he got the first scout. That's not reliable. There's a 1 in 3 chance, simply enough. And he was able to get the scout off first. He sees the barracks is in the base. He's not going for like a CC first. Has he seen? He hasn't even gone in to see whether there's a second gas yet. I don't think he wants to risk the probe dying on the inside of the base. He's going to delay the command center for like 5 seconds and then leave before the Reaper gets out. So, best you can do. This dramatic fuck music. No more singing. Okay. So, based on the angling of the probe and the timing of it, TY is pretty sure that he came in from the top right. It could have been the bottom left. It's very unlikely it was cross positions. He already knows that. But it's still a little bit, it's a little bit of educated guessing there. Okay, the mothership core is out. The Reaper gonna skirt on the edge of the pylon overcharge range. It's gonna see the expansion. And once again, now interestingly, stats only breaking out the Phoenix Adept, was it twice in this series? He did it on Proxima, which is one of the best maps for it, and then he did it on Abyssal Reef, which is kind of a similar layout to Proxima, with a lot of choke points and high low ground areas. So maybe on a more open map, a more standard map, he likes the Robo. I would imagine, because there's less space to really utilize the Phoenixes that isn't on the open field. Oh, I love this. It's the best Terran song. This makes me want to go out on my ranch and go whip some my homegrown creep-fed zerglings, and then go home and beat my wife or something. Nope, that's stereotyping. Everyone knows the Terran music is the best. There's no question about that. It's obviously the Terran. We got a Raven to start for the very first time. Okay, alright. He hasn't made... This is the first Raven made in this entire series. And the Observer is actually dodging. These Marines are out here to snipe that Observer, by the way. That's part of the reason you make a Raven, is to snipe the Observer. So Stats dodges the Observer. He knows it should be here. He knows the timing. He's played this game a couple times before. And he knows it's not an Oracle, because the Oracle would have already showed up. So that's 100% him trying to snipe an Observer. It's not going to pan out. I think he just saw the Observer... Okay. But he saw the Observer in his main, so now he's just still hunting it. He's still looking for it. And he found it. Alright. That's really why that Raven's there. And that means he has a lot more leeway to do pushes, to get units into positions that Stats is just not looking forward to. And it looks like it's going to be a tank push with that Liberator as well. We've got the Combat Shields tank push coming up again. But this time he made a Raven and not a Medevac. So how's that going to pan out? He's actually adding on a second tech lab here. So definitely a twist on what he did a couple games ago. Well, he's done it a couple times. But yeah, definitely a twist. And killing that observer, Stats has been relying on observers and other general units for information. He doesn't have that now. Why does he have 2 zealots? Stats made 2 zealots. Now, he knows what he doesn't know. And what he doesn't know right now is where TY is. TY could be right here, or he could be back at home. He doesn't have that information because of the Raven. And even though he's not going to have a medevac to support his units, having the tanks in position is way better. Oh, and now Stats is going to see it. With the tank siege. Oh, he's going to try to jump on it. That's a very dead Stalker. But Stats needs to zone this out. He's doing it pretty well so far. He stepped a bit far forward, and he tried to tank the damage with the Adept there, as you saw. But TY not having any of that. He target fires the Colossi and takes down a sentry alongside it. And this is actually getting... There's a Marauder now. Combat Shields is done. And this went from not too bad to pretty damn scary in about 30 seconds. There's enough energy for 3 auto turrets on that Raven. These units haven't stim. They don't even have stim. But now the tanks are sieging up the choke point. He doesn't even have enough Stalkers here to fight the Liberator. The turrets are doing an incredible job. And Stats just shut down. He target fires down the Colossi. Wow, Stats is getting slammed with this. He just wasn't ready. I feel like he should have just jumped on the first siege. I feel like on the first siege, you just got to jump on the tanks. You'll probably lose a Colossi, but if you kill the tanks, you stop the push. But he backed up, and that allowed another tank, a better Liberator positioning, more energy on the Raven. And yeah, Stats is just... He's already lost 1 Colossi. The other one is badly bruised. It's going to fall over with a strong wind at the moment. 1 more Colossi comes down. He does have Thermal Lance, but he no longer has a 2nd Nexus or a 3rd. There's 1 Adept, though. This is going to change everything. But, yeah, he tried to get there before the siege. Now there's 2 Widow Mines as well. The Liberator has been taken out, but... He's still delayed this, but... Oh, God. Yeah, that... Oh, God. And that's GG. That's the $100,000 question just being answered by TY there. What a strong push. But that was a great series. Now, that game, like, there's not too much to talk about in that game. I mean, TY just executed that pretty much perfectly. I think Stats made a mistake when he didn't jump on the tanks. I don't think he realized how committed TY was. I'm not sure. But I definitely, I think, now just going back in hindsight, of course, what is it? Right about here? Right around this area is when the push starts moving in. But yeah. He sees a couple tanks. He sees a Liberator. And I honestly think at this point, you just jump on it. You just pop your Guardian Shield. You spread your units out. You eat the fact you're going to lose a Colossi, and you try to stop this push. Now there's a 3rd tank and a Marauder. Like, I think that was Stats' opportunity. And now... A bit of a mistake there. He ate a huge hit and lost a sentry and a lot of HP on his Colossi. Pretty much like, at this point, you either got to go or not go at all. You can't eat hits anymore. So, but yeah, I think if he had jumped on it right at the start, he wouldn't have beat it. But he would have cut the armies down to a more manageable size. At this point, it's just, these units are too strong now in this position. So. Yeah, and now, this is almost GG, because he doesn't have anything else on the way. Like, there's no way he's going to get overcharges there. He doesn't have that many gates coming up. The next Colossi is a long way off. The Twilight Council isn't even done yet. Like, at this point, TY, as long as he doesn't fuck it up, has won the game. So, that's a rough push to deal with, but well executed. Remember, that came down to TY... not happening to actively sniping off observers to make sure that Stats couldn't react to it. And that's, like, if Stats realizes that this is what's going to be happening, like this continued tank push, like he's going to make more than 2 tanks, he's going to have combat shields. If Stats realizes that when it's moving out of the base, well, I think Stats is much more proactive. He jumps on it. Whereas, without that information, Stats had to make a snap call on whether he would jump on it and when. And it ended up not being the right time, and TY kills him. So, all right. That was TY versus Stats. TY takes it 4-3. If you guys have any questions about the series in general or any of the games, I went through all of the games. It's all going to be on YouTube in one big chunk, and I'll put timestamps if I'm not lazy, and you can check it all out. You can, of course, sub on YouTube or whatever if you're into that, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Hopefully you liked it. But I'll answer questions for a couple minutes if anybody has any questions they would like me to comment on, I guess.
With holding on to sound featuring concept. As always, to place your vote for a future throwback, make sure to head over to live.monstercat.com during our podcast stream.
We're doing it live. How long did it say? It was like 3 hours. Is it really abnormal to go for a third before Twilight? It is not, actually. And that's actually, Stats has been doing that most of the series, like he did it on Honor Grounds. It's just, it was a combination of taking that third so early, of TY actively sniping the observers, and also the map position. Like, if this was in cross positions, I think Stats would have been okay. But it wasn't in cross positions, and TY knew that, so I think that factored into his build choice as well. He can cut off the observers, and he can push from a nice location. This is like the same positions as he was in Belshire Vestige. But I do think if Stats had observers and he had more information, maybe he does get the Twilight and the extra gates instead of trying for a third base. So. But yeah, it was a combination of TY actively doing the push and denying information, and also the map positions as well. Can you explain to me how Liberators work? I actually have a Liberator unit guide on YouTube, but I'll give you the quick breakdown. They have air-to-air attack. An air-to-air attack, and they can move. But it only hits air, and it doesn't do much damage or have much range. They're mostly used for their anti-ground attack, where they siege up, and they do a lot of single-target damage. They kill Stalkers in 3 shots. They kill Sentries in 2. They do a fuck-ton of damage, and they zone things out. They're very good, especially against Protoss. I can get you guys the replay link. Let me give you... Here's a direct link. For anybody who wants them, it has the rest of... it has all of the games, by the way. So. Do you take a third or continue unit production to 7+ minutes with Stim? I mean, I think you always take a third if you're able to get the siege up. As you saw TY here, he already had enough production. Adding more barracks when you've already started the push isn't really going to help you out. The only 2 options once you've started the push is you get in a position where you're containing him and you can get a better economy and just kind of hold him there. Or he breaks out at a pretty heavy cost and is able to keep on his economy. So I don't think it's better to add more production, and neither does TY here. Alright, so that was the IEM Katowice Grand Finals. I might go over some of the other series. I didn't actually watch a lot of the series up until the last day, just because of the timing, so...